on YouTube. All of our 6 cameras here in studio are streaming this show live. So if you want to watch and listen, you can go to the 702 YouTube page right now. Liberation Day. That's what Donald Trump, the US president, described yesterday in America as he was announcing these sweeping tariffs on imports from countries around the world. South Africa is among the worst affected. We have been slapped with a 30% tariff. We're actually among 60 countries that have been singled out for higher tariffs.
We take care of countries all over the world. We pay for their military. We pay for everything they have to pay. And then when you want to cut back a little bit, they get upset that you're not taking care of them any longer. But we have to take care of our people, and we're going to take care of our people first. And I'm sorry to say that. And today we're standing up for the American worker, and we are finally putting America first. South Africa, 60%, 30%, and they've got some bad things going on in South Africa. You know, we're paying them billions of dollars, and we cut the funding because a lot of bad things are happening in South Africa. The fake news ought to be looking at it. They don't want to report it.
Yep, that's what Donald Trump said about South Africa as he was announcing these sweeping changes. And it's not just us. China has been slapped with 34% of tariffs, Lesotho 50%, Taiwan 32%, the European Union 20%, Japan 24%, India 26%, South Korea 25%. I think the UK got about 10%. And the list goes on and on and on. The US is the second largest export market for us. I think they account for almost a tenth of total exports that are leaving this country. So this is concerning, especially because for the last 2 decades or so, we have enjoyed duty-free access to the US market through AGOA. So these exports expected to face these high tariffs. Trump was announcing even the 25% tariff on all vehicle imports of foreign-made automobiles, as he put it. And this is going to hurt our vehicle exports, which enjoyed the AGOA benefits for a while now. I mean, think about the agricultural exports. Think about the wine industry. They're all going to be affected by these new duties. And I want to hear about, maybe you're in an industry that really focuses a lot on exports. How are you preparing yourself? How are you going to be responding to these tariffs? The tariffs are going to be coming into effect on Saturday. So I'm interested to hear from you how you think South Africa should respond. You can give us a call or send us a WhatsApp voice note. Trump said if countries cut their own tariffs on the US, he is prepared to lower these duties. So is that what we do? Cut our own tariffs? Do we retaliate with higher tariffs on the US imports? What do we do? Because there's no doubt that if many countries retaliate, inflation is going to worsen across the world, and that's going to have an impact on economic growth. And that's going to endanger global economic development. Already, if you look at the global markets, they tanked just after Donald Trump made this announcement. So does anybody know what Trump is trying to do here? How is this not sabotaging his own people, the Americans? Because they will bear the brunt. When the tariffs are heightened like this and hiked, businesses have to find a way to plug the hole. So what do? You raise your prices for that market. Or does anybody know that this is going to benefit America at some point? Maybe you share that school of thought. I'd like to hear from you on 011-883-0702. Send your WhatsApps on 072-702-1702. Between 10 and 11 o'clock, we're going to do the Hanging Out feature. And today we're hanging out with a Bishop Mosa Sono. He's a renowned and revered spiritual leader. He's the founder and the presiding bishop of Grace Bible Church. It's one of the biggest churches here in Gauteng. He's been a spiritual leader to many people, even people that don't necessarily go to his church. So, and today happens to be his birthday. We were actually meant to have him sometime last month, but he wasn't well. and then we moved it to last week, but then we had to cancel it because we had to broadcast in KwaZulu-Natal. So I'm glad that he's going to be spending his birthday with us between 10 and 11 o'clock. At 11 o'clock, we're going to do our Thursday dialogue, and today we're going to look deeply into how the NPA bungled the Omotoso case. After 8 years of testimonies and delays, the case against the Nigerian televangelist Timothy Omotoso and his co-accused ended in an acquittal for all three of them. This is, again, another disappointing moment for the NPA. These are the people who are facing charges ranging from rape to trafficking to sexual assault and racketeering. And the judge in this matter described this case as shallow. She criticized the unethical conduct of the prosecutors and their incompetent cross-examination. So the prosecutors basically failed to pass the test of proving that proving these charges beyond reasonable doubt. In fact, they didn't meet even the mere basic test of prima facie evidence. That's why the judge was criticizing the prosecution team and the NPA's management of the case, saying that they failed to prove that these charges were true and beyond doubt. And not because she actually believes the accused, but because the NPA just failed to do their job. It's really disappointing. So I've invited journalists who have covered this case from the onset, and I want us to understand, where did the NPA really get it wrong? So that's a conversation we're going to have on our Thursday dialogue at 11 o'clock. That's the show coming up over the next 3 hours.
Clement Manyathela, streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856,
92.7
and 106 FM.
Okay, so you calling us from the Eastern. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement.
Hey.
I hope you're well.
I'm good.
Yes,
Good. How are
Clement, yes. No, I'm fine, thanks. You know, Clement, I think as much as we can bemoan what Trump is doing right around the world, I think South Africa now, we're at a seminal moment for us where we also need to look at a lot of the policies that have been enacted by the ANC since 1994 and whether they're good for the country, right? So, for instance, like, I don't know if you were following the thing with the DA where we asked for, devolution of power back to the provinces because power is obviously being nationalized, right? So they asked that power must be devolved back to the provinces, but it's something that they basically almost brushed off. And you ask yourself, like, who was consulted in a referendum when we had this nationalization of power from the onset in 1994? No one. There was never any referendum done to ask people, like, what do you want and what model do you think can best work for South Africa? It was almost like a decision was taken, similar to like what's happening now with this 1% factor, right? Where there's, the public outrage against it, but we literally just had it shoved down our throats as citizens and we're supposed to just take it. So there's never ever been almost like an honest reflection for them as a party to look at what policies have they enacted over the past 30 years which have been successful and which have worked out and which ones have failed. They haven't actually sat down and done that exercise. So I think this offers them that golden opportunity to actually sit down and look and almost introspect as a party and look at what their policies have done to the society. So I think it's not all bad that's coming from this because it will bring about a lot of honest reflection from their part.
But why do we need tariffs?
Yeah,
I'm struggling to connect that link, Koketso, between those policies that we need to reflect on and these tariffs. How and why? If I'm trying to understand, why do you think this is what we needed?
I think, if you look at it, for instance, Donald Trump just simply has a problem with the ANC. That's basically the long and short of this, right? He has a problem with how the ANC has been running South Africa, and obviously he's taken advice from Elon Musk, which is not always 100% true, but he's taken advice from him. So what I'm saying is that the ANC as a governing party is the party that actually needs to sit and do introspection for themselves to say, in the past 30 years, how have we managed South Africa? So unfortunately now, with how the economy is going, it's going to force them to do that because this, tariffs of Trump are going to bring about a lot of job losses, are going to take away money that America has basically been giving them as a party to manage the
But
thing.
remember,
so
Koketso,
that it's going to force them into that difficulty of having to look at their policies
Yeah.
as a party. That's what I'm simply saying.
Okay, cool. Koketso in East Rand, thank you so much for calling us. Just remember, guys, that this issue of tariffs have got really nothing to do with us. If really this is between South Africa and the US, then we would be the only ones or one of the few countries that are affected. You go and look at the list, it's a very long list of countries that have been affected. So we need to be careful here not to think that this is just a moment again that raises questions about our relationship with the US. In fact, you look at a number of countries. How many of the countries? I mean, there's China here, there's European Union, Vietnam, Taiwan, India, South Korea, Thailand, Switzerland, Indonesia, Malaysia, Cambodia, United Kingdom, South Africa, Brazil, Bangladesh, Singapore, Israel. See, it's got nothing to do with us. So we need to separate the matters, right? There are certain decisions that the US president has taken, that Trump administration has taken as a result of our own, policy differences between the two countries, or what Trump believes is happening to the white Afrikaners here. But this is a separate issue. Yeah, Israel is also being slapped with a 17% tariff, and then there's Australia, there's Pakistan, Turkey, Sri Lanka, Colombia, Peru, Norway, Costa Rica. I can go on and on. Jordan, Argentina. What's this? There's Myanmar, there's Tunisia, there's Serbia, there's Egypt, Saudi Arabia, there's Cote d'Ivoire, there's Botswana, there's Morocco. The list goes on and on and on. This is a completely separate matter. You've got a US president now that is trying to redefine the US economic policy. He said yesterday that this is a declaration of economic independence for America, a day that he said will be remembered as the day the American industry was reborn. So it's about bringing trillions into the economy. At least that's what he believes. But is it what is going to happen? His argument is that many US trading partners have enjoyed these low import tariffs in the US while those countries levy high duties on US goods. Right? That's why you've got this universal tariff of 10%, which will be levied on all US imports. And there are a number of countries that are already preparing to retaliate, which is why I'm asking you this morning, do you think retaliation is the best option for us? Are you maybe someone in the industry, wine industry, manufacturing, automobile, whatever industry you're in? If you are exporting to that market in the US, you've got to start thinking about what you're going to do. Have you thought about that? How concerned are you, if you're in the industry, about how this is going to impact your business? I really would like to hear from you. The UK, the EU have threatened to retaliate, but make no mistake, this is a shift, a significant shift from the years and years of US policy. So how is your company preparing for this? How do you respond to stay afloat? Let's go to Teenage, who's calling us from Cosmo City. Teenage, what are your thoughts? Hi.
Hey, Clement Manyathela.
Sure, man. Go ahead.
Sharp. America, as much as Trump is a kind of a mad person, but they're tired of being big brother to everyone. I mean, what's wrong with just changing tariffs because you think they'll work for your own company, for your own country? The same applies to us if we were to do tariff to Malawi or Zimbabwe. It will be for the benefit of the people. So if Trump is saving his America, why do we have to worry? Why can't you just say, okay,
how do you think he's saving his America, Teenage? How do you, from your own assessment, how does something like this actually benefit Americans?
I think Trump believes that intra-trading in America itself is better than going outside. That's why he doesn't want to rely on outside wealth. He wants to rely on America and keep money in America. That's what he's doing. I think that's a gamble that he's willing to do. For us, is to say that, okay, fine, USA is the second economic trading partner. Why can't we go take it to number 6 and save Asia and Europe and increase our trade there? instead of focusing on America all the time. It's not a big brother anymore. You can see it was.
Okay, Teenage in Cosmo City, thank you very much. I'm really interesting to see how this is going to turn out. The world is integrated. You cannot want to isolate yourself if you want to grow economically. You can't. That's why everything is connected. That's why when you look at the markets right now, they tanked after this announcement by the president. And look at how we are going to be affected just by the reaction to that decision, the reaction on the markets. Why? Because this is a globalized economy. So there's no one country that can just isolate itself and be so self-dependent that it wants to isolate its allies, its trade partners. Americans are going to bear the brunt. And Trump understands that, but he doesn't stress that a lot when he announces these plans. He talks about how, and this, you could argue, this is a gamble that he's willing to take. Great. But be honest to Americans and tell them you're about to have it tough over the next couple of years. Or is this a gamble that if it goes well, the benefits are suddenly going to come in the next 6 months, in the next year? I doubt it. Here's some of the WhatsApp on 072 702 1702.
Good morning, Clement. Thanks to AfriForum, Solidarity, and also DA for the tariffs hikes, because lying about what is taking place in the country. Of course, also it might be part of being part of BRICS. That is the reason why also that it's added. Moshe Rebai.
I think in terms of a response, we would be very naive to think we can retaliate. I mean, in terms of a world economic scale, we are a speck of dust. So, I think it's, go with the flow, roll with the punches. This too shall change. We just need to be smart.
Hi, Clement. I just think this is just time for Africa to actually rise, hey? Donald Trump is just saying we need to rise and unite as an African country and realize our capabilities, I suppose, right?
Morning, Clement. I think what the Trump administration did is that they just opened the market for tech. So in other words, they just took the foot off the tiger. So that means anyone can have other alternatives, because what they're trying to do is that to prove that the world needs America more than America needs the world. So it's about time we prove them wrong. Pretoria. Good morning.
Hi, Clement. Hope you well. So the other thing I think people are overlooking with this liberation of the U.S. Is with them doing these tariffs, I think ultimately they just want to lower yields. They just want to force people who are holders of U.S. treasuries and bonds to come back and renegotiate, because, I mean, if you lower yields, then you essentially are paying less on your debt. So once you achieve that, it's cheaper for you, plus then generating that income. So why wouldn't they do that?
Yeah, guys. So I was looking at, because I remember there was a study that was done back in, I think it was probably 2022 or 2023, by the Peterson Institute for International Economics. And that study found that Trump's tariffs during his first term actually cost U.S. consumers and businesses about $51 billion a year. Hence, the question I was asking about how much of a consideration is there for the U.S. consumers themselves? Because, yes, he argues that these tariffs are important and they're essential to revitalize U.S. manufacturing. And you want to encourage consumers as well to buy America, because, as I said, any other business that exports to that market, when you have tariffs that are being hiked like that, you have to find a way to plug that hole. So you increase your prices. Who gets affected by that? It's the consumers in that market. So what Trump says now is, let's encourage people to buy America. So when this vehicle that gets exported from South Africa comes in, Trump says, yeah, you see, it's very expensive for you as a result of our tariffs, then go prefer and choose something that is local. But in the long term, in fact, even just short term, how is that going to impact the Americans themselves? This is an interconnected global economy. America as a superpower has become, in fact, a super world economy, a superpower. Why? Because it's played a critical role, leading role in that interconnected global economy. And Donald Trump has just broken that all apart. How do you think we should respond as South Africa? Do we retaliate? Can we even afford to retaliate? Do we lower our own tariffs on the US? Because he says any country that lowers their tariffs, then he's willing to renegotiate and lower these duties on us. I mean, you should see how they've even calculated how countries have duties on the US. It doesn't even make sense that we, as South Africa, have actually been charging the US about 60%. These are tariffs charged to the US. The way they calculated it, this doesn't even make sense. So what do we do? And if you are in an industry that's going to be affected, you export to the US, I'd like to hear your thoughts. How concerned are you? And are there protections you're putting in place to protect the business? 011-883-0702. That takes us to exactly 9:30. Time for the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. Fiso, hi.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. With the DA having put itself in the cold or out in the cold after refusing to back its coalition partners in approving the budget framework, the attention shifts to whether Action SA now has a foot in the door to join the governing inner circle. Action SA gave the coalition its 6 votes to get the budget blueprint over the line on the condition that the VAT hike is retracted within 30 days, signalling there could be more in the offering for a future working relationship with the ANC, despite its vehement rejection of joining forces in the past. The family of another child who was raped allegedly at a school in the Eastern Cape says they are still finding it difficult to cope with what happened to the little boy. The 6-year-old was raped several times between September and October last year. This is one of the many cases that law enforcement officials in the province are grappling with. And the presidency says it's concerned about the newly imposed U.S. tariffs, calling them punitive and a barrier to trade. U.S. President Donald Trump has unveiled the global sweeping tariffs, saying it's payback for unfair trade policies. South Africa has been slapped with a 30% tariff, but the presidency here at home says the country remains committed to a mutually beneficial trade relationship with Washington. And those are the headlines. This EWN and more at 10 or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
This EWN Traffic is brought to you by cars.co.za. Let's find what moves you. Mvangeli, how are we looking on the roads?
Well, not too bad, Clement, especially after the early morning hustle and bustle. So delay is starting to dwindle down on all major routes. In fact, we don't appear to have any new incident, just some pressure in Midrand, 15 minutes strong from New Road. In fact, all the way from Sambrand past New Road until you get to the Bekru interchange. Certainly an incident, could be a stationary vehicle or even construction or road works. Have those time constraints in Ekurhuleni, Campton Park, R21 heading south. And if you're coming from Olifantsfontein Road, heading towards the R23 exit. So that's heading towards the Glen Marais region, west of Gauteng. Stop and go traffic on Randfontein Road, just near Matholesville. And then west, this is the southwestern townships, still seeing a bit of stop and go traffic in Orlando West. Anticipate pressure on Glovu Street, especially heading towards Middlelands, Orlando East as well. And then look out for pressure. Lenasia, Rose Avenue is also quite slow, while in Protea Glen, the N12 queuing at the N12 split. That's getting off at the Protea Glen off-ramp. I'll have your next traffic update in 32 minutes or as it happens.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Do you want to buy a Honda? Cars.co.za. Toyota or Mahindra? Cars.co.za. Do you want to sell a Cherry? Cars.co.za. Suzuki or Mercedes? Cars.co.za. Polo, Kia, Mitsubishi, Havel, Hyundai, Lamborghini. Buy and sell, it's very easy. All you got to do is type Cars.co.za. 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 Let's find what moves you. Cars.co.za.
Africa Milane.
Weekday mornings,
4 to 6.
We also need to be quite optimal in using the money we have access to, given the fact that it's only a fraction of what we need to improve the infrastructure in this country.
I think one of the things the president did hint on, it's not quite clear how it might happen, but it's time that the private sector became involved in the water sector infrastructure development and also planning as well for the future. And I'm not seeing that happening fast enough.
Kevin Winter is an emeritus professor at UCT, also with the Future Water Institute.
Africa Milane.
4 to 6 on 702.
Your old clothes could be life-changing for someone else. The Street Store, the world's first free pop-up clothing store, has partnered with Old Khaki on their latest collaboration. Last season is So This Season. By decluttering your cupboard and donating to the Street Store, you'll give those in need the chance to transform their lives by choosing the clothing they want. Drop off your clothing donation by 10 April at 9 8th Street, Houghton Estate, Old Khaki and Street Store. Last season is So This Season.
When it comes to corporate travel, South African Airways knows what you need. SAA services are designed specifically for the business traveler. Experience competitive rates, flexible travel options with waived change fees, and fully refundable and flexible tickets for a hassle-free journey. SAA dedicated key account management means your travel needs are meticulously handled every step of the way. Plus, earn Voyager miles on every trip and relax in our luxurious business class lounges. South African Airways, where your travel needs are our priority. We don't just fly you, we prioritize your travel needs. Visit flysaa.com or call your nearest travel agent to tailor your corporate travel experience. South African Airways, transforming business travel.
Managing your workforce shouldn't be complicated. That's why businesses choose Onacy, a proudly South African cloud-based payroll and HR solution. From payroll and e-recruitment to performance management and self-service tools, we streamline the way businesses handle their people. Scalable, secure, and always online, our system evolves with your needs because your workforce deserves the best. Switch to Onacy and experience payroll and HR done right. Visit onacy.com today.
The Money Show.
Weekday evenings at 6.
Have we missed an opportunity to fix some of our big long-term problems?
Our problems are very complex. Much as many people would like to think that they are not, they are complex. In order to find solutions that are able to move the country forward, we need to take different routes in order for us to get different outcomes.
I'm Teto Nyati, the chair at ESCOM.
The Money Show
on 702. Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, honored as the best research house for the 8th consecutive year at the JSC Spire Awards 2024. Your story matters. ABSA is a registered FSP.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
24 minutes before 10 o'clock. Let me hear from Moses in Senton, and then I'm going to bring in Khaya Sithole, who's a chartered accountant, just to give you a sense of what are the impacts of these kind of tariffs. Impact on us, but also impact on Americans. Moses, what are your thoughts? You're in Senton. Hi.
Hi, Clement.
Sure.
Trump is the best ludicrous leader that we have on earth. He looks after Americans. Just think about it, okay? He is saying a minimum you should do is bring your manufacturing facilities into America. But actually what Trump wants is for Americans to set up the manufacturing companies themselves in America so that they can manufacture these cars for Americans, create jobs. And you know, the big thing for him is that then he is sorting out the foreign account. He won't have a deficit in his foreign account with South Africa or EU or anybody because he's not buying anything from them. But those countries need something from America. If they do buy, they may not buy. Then it's creating his foreign reserves. Now, if you look okay, so that's the one thing. So the companies are going to America. Is the first price, they must be owned by Americans. Second price is that it can be a foreign company because it will still be expatriating profit, you see. Now, the one big mistake that we are doing. Take what where they were saying, oh, we will not send minerals. America doesn't need our minerals. America is a big country. They've got all the minerals we have. So basically, by Gwede saying that, America is opening mining companies to mine his own minerals because he has them. He can get them also from Ukraine if he wants to. But actually, he can mine them in America. America doesn't need our minerals. Therefore, we are cooked, if you really think about it. America doesn't need us. America's foreign account is going to be very good. Americans will have more jobs, okay? And some people will still continue to buy from America because there's something that America is producing which they can't produce in their country.
Okay, Moses, in Zenton, thank you for your call. I'm still not convinced that America can succeed while isolating itself in this interconnected global economy. I'll come to you, Jabu, in 4 ways. I want to take Khaya Sithole quickly, who's a chartered accountant. Khaya, let me start from that point that Moses raises about America, working for America because America doesn't need us. Given the structure of this global economy, can a country succeed by isolating itself like this?
I don't believe so. And I think quite interestingly, even based on Trump's own actions, so if you look at the tariffs that he implemented yesterday and the formula that he's applied, I've been able to find the document that seems to be the premise for his formula. So in that document, what it says is that the United States is indeed the second largest exporter of goods in the world behind China. So they export goods worth $2.1 trillion to the globe. They, in turn, then import goods worth $3.2 trillion into the United States. So if you think, for example, about the number of U.S. businesses that export goods worth $2.1 trillion to the rest of the world, the fact that such businesses could simply just operate with just a market of 300 million U.S. citizens compared to the 8 billion people in the world, that simply just doesn't get the mathematical dimensions right for me. So you'd have to ask yourself the question of whether Trump's proposition is that, look, we can operate as a standalone economy without having to work or trade with anyone else. And I think the very first question is what happens to those $2.1 trillion in exports that they already have. On the import side, when you're importing $3.2 trillion of goods, it's very clear that you don't have the capacity to manufacture everything that you need internally. So again, with that one, if everybody had to say we're no longer trading with the United States, you'd have to ask whether everything that they were importing up to that rate of $3.2 trillion is available in that domestic market, and I suspect the answer is no.
Well, his argument would be that by imposing these tariffs, I'm trying to create an environment where Americans themselves are going to start participating in those industries, and we revitalize U.S. manufacturing. And then ultimately you get Americans who then are forced to sort of buy local, like American consumers. Isn't that, that's the argument that he uses.
Yeah, but it's an argument that is limited by design. So the very first problem here is that the very basic fundamentals of international trade is that I buy from you what I don't have, and I sell to you what you don't have. There isn't a single country anywhere in the globe that is able to say that the entire economic value chain can be cultivated internally. It just simply doesn't work like that. So there are instances in the manufacturing, for example, where he indeed has got a stronger case for saying that, look, we used to manufacture in-house and then it all went off to other countries. We want to bring that back. But in instances where, for example, you're importing some particular minerals that are only available in some countries that have had the fortune of those natural endowments, well, you simply cannot in-source that because you do not have it within your territory. So it doesn't actually apply across the entire spectrum of economic activities. There are things that America simply doesn't have and they could never have because they just don't have that as a natural endowment. So you still have to interact with other partners in the globe in order to be able to access those, especially when you need them to in-house as much of the manufacturing value chains as he wants to do.
Okay, so how do we respond then as South Africa? Because, it is concerning, especially because for the last 2 decades or so, we enjoyed duty-free access to the U.S. market through AGOA. So these exports are expected to, face these high tariffs. Even like the the exports that we're benefiting from AGOA. What's the best way then to respond as government? Because Trump says if you lower your own tariffs on America, then we can renegotiate these duties.
So a lot of people believe that retaliatory tariffs are the way to go. So if he says 30, you say 30. If he says 40, you say 40. Unfortunately, it's not a very linear process, because then there's a question of, well, if we decided that we wanted to impose those particular tariffs, what is the impact on the ultimate end user, which is the South African consumer? Trump seems to operate on the premise that Americans will not be affected, because he just keeps saying that other people will pay the price. But that's quite simply untrue. So if goods are more expensive for citizens to acquire, the citizens will ultimately have to pay more. So a retaliation is not necessarily the easiest way to get around this. When you speak about the question of AGOA, well, at this stage, AGOA is actually a limited preferential access model, which simply says that it's not every single South African good or service that is being traded in the United States that is subject to that. There is a list, a designated list of items that when they come into the U.S. market, then they're currently duty-free. Now, obviously, if he then says there's a universal tariff of 30% on everything that looks South African, then it means by definition, AGOA, as far as we're concerned, is dead. But he doesn't, in his engagements, deliberate on that as a specific issue. He simply just issues blanket tariffs across all countries, with the exception of Mexico and China, where he has been differentiating up until now. But obviously, it now looks like there's just a universal model based on the formula, a very strange formula that he applied yesterday.
And just lastly, how does this affect American consumers in the short term? And I say in the short term because I'm trying to at least give him the benefit of the doubt that maybe in the long term they do revitalize the manufacturing industry of America. Maybe in the long term this gamble that he's taking is somehow going to pay off. But short term, how are Americans going to be affected?
So in the short term, the question that they have to deal with is the question of whether alternatives exist in the local market. So if they were buying a bottle of wine from South Africa for 100 Rand and then suddenly it becomes $130, every consumer then has to make the call of whether they still want to buy and pay that higher price, or if they look for local alternatives. So there might be an initial spike in the demand for local products. But again, that only applies to local products that exist in that particular market. And then in relation to what he ultimately wants to do, he then wants the manufacturers, those that have a longer term viewpoint, to then ask themselves the question of whether they can afford to lose access to a 300 million strong market. And the simple answer is that no one can afford to lose access to that market. Then the secondary question is, can they still ship the same volumes if they're now going to be priced at a higher price point due to the tariff? And the answer is that very few can maintain the same volumes and the quantities. So then the third option is that, well, if you then manufacture your product within the U.S. territory, you not only get the benefit of zero tariffs, but you've now got immediate and direct access to the American market. So there will indeed be those who take the view that, look, this is going to be a long-term project, so therefore we may as well go and be located in the United States, which is what Trump has been saying that he's calling for, to bring back the manufacturing jobs that have been lost. But that worked for the manufacturing sector. I'm not sure if it's an equally strong conversation across other parts of the economic value chain.
Khaya Sithole, Chartered Accountant, thank you so much for coming through to just contextualize Liberation Day. That was yesterday in America. I wouldn't be surprised if Donald Trump wants it to be a holiday at some point, maybe next year. The 1st of April or 2nd of April will be known in America as Liberation Day. That's the day that the U.S., because that's what Donald Trump said. He said, that's a day when we will be remembered. It will be remembered as a day that the American industry was reborn. Watch out for it. It may just be Liberation Day, and it's a holiday in the U.S. in the coming years.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela.
On 702.
Jabu, you calling from Fourways. Good morning.
Morning, Clement. The way I'm looking into this is that Trump didn't have any choice here, because if you look at it, the U.S. is losing power across all metrics, across all measurements. For an example, if you look at the debt that the U.S. has, they are sitting at almost $34 trillion of debt, which it has not become unsustainable actually in the long run. Two, the dollar as a reserve currency of the world is actually falling. So you've got BRICS, you've got the Chinese, the Indians, everyone, and the dollar's dominance since 1954 up until now, it is actually on the decline. So, and you've got China and all of these other economies that are challenging the US. So the US is a big brother from Second World War. After Second World War, it doesn't have that leverage anymore to dish out cities to everyone. What Trump is doing, he is actually gambling. So he is, throwing red meat to everyone to say, let us restructure, let us negotiate. These tariffs are a first attempt to renegotiate the U.S. role in the world economy, because the U.S. role in the world economy is actually crumbling. It's no longer dominant as it used to be. So, and it cannot continue like that. So that is why what it's doing is that America can only win here if there's no retaliation from other, and the chances of other economies not retaliating are very high. Why? Simply because of the political influence and the military influence that the U.S. has. So, for an example, you said I read that Audi, Ferrari, and all these other manufacturers are already moving their factories into the U.S. and all these things. But for me, the leaning for South Africa is that I think the world is actually changing at a drastic pace. South Africa must actually take drastic steps in the sense that we must, for an example, South Africa must stop subsidizing our SOEs. It is a black drain into our fiscals, and it's not sustainable at all. So hundreds of billions of rands are being thrown to revive.
But that stopped, Jabu, to be fair on government, since Tito Mboweni days. Remember, they took that hardline approach of no more bailouts. If anything, we can give you maybe a guarantee so you can go and loan some money. But there's been a hardline approach in recent years.
Yeah, but my point here in all of this is that I think the SA government also, they need to be decisive in terms of which road they want to chart. Let's look at, I'm not looking at the economy only. Let's look at the EU. The EU is a signatory to ICC. And today, Benjamin Netanyahu is in Hungary. And Hungary is part of EU, and Hungary is a signatory to
the Rome Statute.
ICC. Yes, but South Africa couldn't even allow Putin to come in here because it was afraid that it could be blamed and all these things because it is a signatory. What I'm trying to say is that everyone is doing their own things. They don't care anymore about international rules and everything. Everyone is looking at their own national interests, and that's what South Africa is supposed to be doing. Who would have thought that a European nation like Hungary, which is part of the EU, has invited Netanyahu, who has been charged by the ICC. There is no condemnation from the EU. There's no condemnation from anyone. But if it was South Africa that had invited someone that had been indicted...
Remember with Omar al-Bashir? With Omar al-Bashir, we were in trouble for not arresting him. And in fact, there was so much pressure on the even Russian president, because I think the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, wanted to come, wanted to dare the ICC and say, I will be in South Africa and nothing is going to happen to me. But yeah, that wouldn't have worked for us because there are courts that ruled against our government in the Omar al-Bashir matter. But yeah, Jabu, Hungary, you're right. Benjamin Netanyahu is there. And I think Hungary already indicated yesterday, I think when I was watching CNN, they had indicated that they will not detain or respect this arrest warrant from the ICC and arrest Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. But yeah, someone on the WhatsApp line says, yeah, I get where Jabu is coming from here. Maybe there's hope for countries to restructure the global architecture. Yeah, is that the opportunity? Is this an opportunity to end the unipolar dominance of Washington like we're often told? Is this a moment where we're going to start seeing the reintroduction of a multipolar democratic order that belongs to the majority of the people on earth? Is that now possible? Maybe we need to start looking at the positive sides of this tragedy. MJ, in fact, let's start with you, Jennifer in Sandton. What are your thoughts? Good morning.
Something that we're not taking into account, when South Africa suffered sanctions, our economy didn't collapse. In fact, a number of industries grew. and there were a lot of products that still are internationally acclaimed products, things like creepy crawly, in fact, entire surfing lines and stuff like that were produced in South Africa because of sanctions. Things like sporting goods, hockey sticks, tennis rackets, and all that industry actually grew because we needed to manufacture our own goods. So we turned in. Do you not think America, with all their businessmen, with all the entrepreneurs in America, that they cannot lager, as we would have said, our old regime would have said, they were lagering, they were turning in on their country. Do you not think that they can actually start up businesses, improve factories, re-employ people? I was in West Virginia for 4 months, and in that area, more than half of the men in that area are unemployed, because coal mines have been closed down, all this sort of thing has gone. Those will be resuscitated. Trump has already said he'd do that. Those miners will go back to work. The refineries in those areas will start refining again because they will bring in new oil deposits. America is a country of businessmen. It's a country of entrepreneurs. They will turn this around to their benefit. Look, Trump has wanted to cut the AGOA treaty when he was first in office. He wasn't able to do it because of the length of the treaty. And he promised he would do it when he got in this time.
Yeah.
The AGOA thing didn't stand a chance. And look, it's really unfortunate. I sit on a lot of committees where this is discussed, and it's a terrible thing for South Africa. A lot of people are going to lose their jobs. The wine industry is going to be trashed. Our agricultural industry is going to be trashed. Our tourist industry is going to be trashed. Probably the rand will crash. We need to stop whinging and either we play international politics. We've decided we're not going to do that. Then we need to have a plan. Then we need to have a plan with cheap finances, cheap money, so businesses can start up. We need to stop dipping hands, and this is across the board in South Africa, dipping our hands into the till and developing companies instead. Stop thinking about fancy cars and the high salaries and think how your actual company can be improved, can be increased, how your workers can be educated and lifted and more productive for you as a company, not you as a person. And we need to change our outlook in South Africa and say, look, we're not people in South Africa. We are South Africans. So we're going to actually pick up this country, and we're not going to worry about what the rest of the world says, but we're going to make sure that our country is going to succeed.
Yeah, got it. Jennifer in Sandton, thank you for your contribution. MJ in Pretoria, your thoughts?
Hi, Clement. Look, my view is no country can claim to be self-sufficient when it comes to international trade. I'll make this simple example. If you look at agriculture, for an example, I mean, we know that agricultural crops are seasonal products. So let's say, for an example, South Africa is the biggest producer of maize. But being the biggest producer of maize, at some point, we couldn't produce enough maize, and we had to rely on neighboring countries like Zimbabwe and so forth. You get what I'm saying? So America, as much as they may think that they want to produce everything locally, I mean, if they are hit by natural disasters, for an example, they export their chicken to South Africa. If they are hit by bird flu, they will be forced to import a lot of chicken. And who is going to be hurt? The ultimate person who's going to feel this either way, Clement, is the American consumer. The American politicians, American businesses will be smiling because now there will be limited competition, because, I mean, they know many companies won't import easily because of the tariffs. But now, what are they going to do? They will then start hiking prices. Who's going to feel the heat is the American consumer. So it's not going to be easy for American consumer, just as it's not going to be easy for us as foreign citizens.
Yeah, MJ, great contribution there. Thank you. Trump says, well, it's going to be painful, but That's just in the short term. Long term, you will reap the benefits. I guess we'll have to wait and see. It's 2 minutes before 10 o'clock.
At 7:02,
We're proud of a lot of things
but none more than our connection to you.
because we know when we walk the talk,
We're never alone.
I had been waiting so long for UIF for 18 months, and Kabazela and John Perlman had somebody from UIF on. And you know what? I finally got paid, and I just want to say it's actually saved my life. So 702, thank you, and you reach far and wide to all people.
Every SMS,
voice note,
email,
phone call,
your every word leads to action.
that changes lives, changes minds, uplifts communities, and holds authority to account.
Together, we've turned dialogue into good deeds.
And promises into progress.
Yes, we did that. You and 702. So, stay tuned.
Because if this is how far we've come, imagine how much further we can go.
When we stick together, 702.
Let's walk the talk.
Hi, I'm Lewis Hamilton. Victory demands everything, but the journey is never solo. My team carves the way, data and innovation are my compass. This is how today's champions are made.
Drive your success and trade like a champion. CFI, a global leading broker now in South Africa. Access over 15,000 instruments, advanced trading tools, 24/7 support, and superior trading services. Visit cfi.trade today. CFI Financial is an authorized financial services provider.
CFI, empower yourself.
My family's struggling with snotty noses and phlegmy coughs.
Oh no! Have you tried ACC?
ACC 600 is a convenient one-a-day effervescent tablet from 14 years of age, or now also in a no water needed fruity flavored sherbet-like granules that dissolve in your mouth. Ideal for the on-the-go adult. Ask for ACC 600 effervescent or oral powder at your nearest pharmacy to get rid of the snotties and flemings. And trust, if it doesn't say ACC, it's not ACC.
702 was in conversation with Altron, celebrating 60 years of solving real-world problems and discussing their plans to rebuild and re-energize Johannesburg through partnership and collaboration.
So our business is really what we call a platform and an IT services business. And what we do for our customers essentially is we use technology either on our platforms or in a bespoke way, working with our customers to really help to operate their digital infrastructure, to optimize their digital infrastructure, and really to transform their digital infrastructure. And within this business, we've got a number of businesses. Netstar, probably one that you might be familiar with, which is really actually celebrated its 30 years.
Visit Altron.com for more info. Altron, a technology industry leader since 1965.
This is EWN.
Good morning, I'm Sfiso Zulu. With the DA having put itself out in the cold after refusing to back its coalition partners in approving the budget framework, the attention shifts to whether Action SA now has a foot in the door to join the governing inner circle. Action SA gave the coalition its 6 votes to get the budget blueprint over the line on the condition that the VAT hike is retracted within 30 days, signalling there could be more in the offering for a future working relationship with the ANC, despite its vehement rejection of joining forces in the past. The party is expected to make an announcement about its next steps at a briefing in Parliament this morning. Last night, Action SA's parliamentary leader Athol Trollip said he had confidence in the ANC to stick to its word to find alternatives to the pending or impending VAT hike to fund the revenue shortfall.
This ANC government is going to have to understand that they're going to have to change their bad habits. Every year there are expenditure reviews that are tabled in Parliament. They just get ignored, just like the Zondo Commission. We're going to put pressure on them to change their expenditure patterns and their behaviour.
Trollip has described his former political home, the DA, as the greatest protagonist in getting the budget framework over the line.
So as we're all bickering here about parochial interests and about more control in the GNU, we see the value of the rand and our economy tubing. We as Action SA said we've got to do something pragmatic, and we did it. Something unexpected, something new, but this whole situation is new.
The family of another child who was raped allegedly at a school in the Eastern Cape says they are still finding it difficult to cope with what happened to the little boy. The 6-year-old was raped several times between September and October last year. This is one of the cases that law enforcement officials in Matatiele is grappling with. The rape of a 7-year-old girl in the same vicinity has sparked calls for justice across the country. Zolega Kotashe has more.
As South Africa fixes its eyes on Matatiele amid uproar over the rape of a 7-year-old girl, further anguish lies in Maluti, a township in the Matatiele local municipality. Two other pupils, aged 6 and 7, were harmed last year about 9 kilometers from the city centre. Boy, which is not the child's real name, was just 6 years old when he was raped, allegedly on the premises of an early childhood development center. His grandmother, who has raised him, noticed a change in the child's walk and demeanor when he returned from school in October last year.
I asked him later on the same day if someone had touched his body and hurt him without being specific because I didn't want to ask him if it happened at school. He confirmed that there was. He expressed pain and clenched the handle of the door. He explained what the person did to him. He said he went to the bathroom and the person took him to his office, placed him on his stomach, removed his clothes.
A suspect is currently in custody over the crime. Zolega Kotashe, Eyewitness News, Matatiele in the Eastern Cape.
And the presidency says it's concerned about the newly imposed U.S. tariffs, calling them punitive and a barrier to trade. U.S. President Donald Trump has unveiled the global sweeping tariffs, saying it's payback for unfair trade policies. South Africa has been slapped with a 30% tariff, but the presidency here at home says it remains committed to a mutually beneficial trade relationship with Washington. Presidency spokesperson Vincent Magwenya.
Unilaterally imposed and punitive tariffs are a concern and serve as a barrier to trade and shared prosperity. The tariffs affirm the urgency to negotiate a new bilateral and mutually beneficial trade agreement with the U.S. as an essential step to secure long-term trade certainty.
World leaders have also reacted and weighed in, with European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen saying this will have a ripple effect.
The global economy will massively suffer. Uncertainty will spiral and trigger the rise of further protectionism. The consequences will be dire for millions of people around the globe, also for the most vulnerable countries.
Gold is trading at $3,153.19 an ounce. The rand is at 18.82 to the dollar, 24.58 to the pound, 20.55 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $73.24 a barrel.
On our road, City of Johannesburg, no major reported incident. We just have a bit of pressure. So this is coming out of Midrand as you head towards Sandton M1, heading south until you get to the Buccleuch interchange. Similar conditions persisting. Nation's capital is Sepanya-Mogale Drive. And this is as you're heading south, coming from Roseville, from the Mabubane Highway, while in the city of Ekurhuleni, free-flowing traffic throughout. Please continue driving with care.
A cloudy day in store for Gauteng with scattered showers and thunder showers expected. The temperatures will peak at highs between 17 and 20 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour, with the DA having put itself out in the cold after refusing to back its coalition partners in approving the budget framework, the attention shifts to whether Action SA now has a foot in the door to join the governing inner circle.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with Clement Manyathela
On 702.
Let's walk the talk. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856.
92.7 and 106 FM.
7 minutes after 10 o'clock. Dumelang, welcome to the second hour of the Clement Manyathela show. Thank you so much for staying with us here on 702, and thank you for your contributions on the 702 open line. And yeah, spare a thought for the businesses that are going to be affected by these sweeping tariffs that are coming from the US. As you heard from Jennifer in Sandton, a number of people will lose their jobs ultimately. There are a number of consumers as well, even in America, who are going to take a hard beating here. But Donald Trump says this is just in a short term. Long term, things are going to go back to normal, and there are going to be trillions that are going to come into the US economy. For the sake of America, I hope he's right about that. At 11 o'clock, we're going to do our Thursday dialogue, and today we're going to be looking deeply into how the NPA bungled that Omotoso case. I've invited a number of journalists that have covered this case from the onset. How did they get it wrong? I mean, simple things. They just got it wrong. And it reminds me of what the magistrate in Bloemfontein said when we bungled our first ever state capture case. And she said it was a comedy of errors. That's how he described the NPA case. So there's something wrong with the NPA, something wrong with their prosecutors. Zizi Koto's case, bungled, he's acquitted. It's happened so many times that prosecutors are quick to take people to court, people get arrested, but they don't have a strong case. It's not enough that you believe someone is guilty. What the court cares about is, can you prove beyond reasonable doubt? And if you can't even pass the basic test of prima facie evidence, why is that person even in court? And why are you even a prosecutor? So that's quite distressing. We're going to talk about that at 11 o'clock. But right now, we start with our Hanging Out feature.
Hanging Out with Clement
on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
And today, we are hanging out with Bishop Mosa Sono. We were supposed to have the bishop. We told you guys last month. We couldn't have him last week because we were broadcasting in Durban, and we've invited him to come to studio. And I'm so glad he's here on his birthday. So it's a special moment for us, and I hope it will be a special one for you as well, Bishop Sono. Welcome to 702. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement, and thank you for having me, and good morning to all the listeners of 702 and all those who join you online as well.
Yes, we are live on YouTube, so there are people that are watching this conversation live there. If you've just joined us, you can go check out the 702 YouTube page as well if you want to watch this conversation live. So, first of all, happy birthday.
Thank you.
What do you normally do on your birthdays?
Oh, I think the first thing I do in the morning is to really thank God for the day.
Yeah.
You know, I think the older you get is the more you appreciate the gift of life. I think life is a gift, and that you are healthy, strong, and things are going well. Of course, navigating all the ups and downs of life is the first thing I do. Secondly, of course, I thank my wife, who's I live with. You know, we're only two now. Our children are not at home with us. And, well, sometimes they take me out. Sometimes I go for some special events. Sometimes I'm just at home.
Yeah.
But it's a day, frankly, filled with a lot of gratitude, Clement. To be honest with you.
I heard that you play golf.
Yes.
And you played quite regularly. I was in a meeting with somebody who was telling me you often play with her husband just the other day. And I wanted to know, is he that good? You must ask your husband. She said, I'll ask my husband. I'll come back to you.
No, I think the reason they didn't tell me is because I have to pray for my golf.
Wait, what's your handicap now?
I think I'm a 14.
That's good.
Well, if you say 14 is good, I think then maybe I'm good then. Yeah,
I'm 18.
I mean, it's only 4 difference. And you know how it is, Clement, right? Depends on the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing about golf. That's the thing about
Depends how you are. But I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
It helped me a lot, really, to deal with de-stressing.
Yeah.
And just, having a time to connect and fellowship and take my mind off work. It's said I found that out late when I was already much older. I dealt with a lot of issues in my early days of being a pastor, dealing with my mental wellness, emotional wellness. I just didn't have an outlet at all, and I didn't know how to do it. You know, and Ronaldo from that background, Clement, where, it was like, if you're really a child of God, there's worldly things you don't do,
Golf,
you don't watch sports, you don't do golf, none of that.
Yeah.
Until I heard one of the ministers, Dr. Cho, who's passed on now, talking about how it helped him health-wise. And I tried it, and somehow I enjoyed it. And I realized I've distressed quite a bit. I think I'm a bit better than what I was in terms of handling myself. The emotional part of us is the most difficult for us as pastors, I think.
Yeah.
And the mental wellness.
That's so fascinating. And I want us to touch on that much later, because I always talk on the show about how because there are these people we put on a pedestal in society, we think they're not human. And I think we make that mistake a lot, even as congregants.
Right.
I think you're a pastor, you are somehow this angelic creature who is not human, who doesn't get sad, who doesn't get distressed, who doesn't stress, but actually you are a human being. You just are armed with a framework to know how to respond to that.
I was telling somebody yesterday, actually, that we don't have a gift of living the Christian life. We only have the gift of preaching. We live life like everybody. And there's no special grace to us, given to us by God. So if you don't equip yourself and help yourself in any natural, normal way like everybody. And I think that's one of the things that leads to us crashing out as leaders, getting burned out, us sometimes not dealing with things well emotionally and having crisis in our lives. Someone calls it self-leadership. It's it's the hardest. It's easy to lead others. It's very hard to lead yourself.
Yeah.
It's the most difficult.
Have you always wanted to be a pastor?
No.
What was your vision when you were growing up?
My late father was an incredible school teacher, and he made me fall in love with teaching because of the way he taught, the way he cared for the young people. Those days when there was corporal punishment at school, my dad would never punish any of the students, and they never even called him teacher so-and-so. They called him Ntate Sono. That's how affectionately they called him. And over time, I got to meet some of the people he had taught, and I just fell in love with teaching. So I was going to be a teacher all my life. From primary school, I wanted to be a school teacher. And it all changed in 1979.
Yeah, you became a different kind of a teacher.
Well, yes. And I often say, I think I was right all along.
Yes.
Maybe I just didn't know that we teach in church,
Yeah, Muruti is... So, and I say teacher because I don't think sometimes as pastors you pause and think about the impact you have. So I come from a village in Falbak in Mpumalanga. And the first time I came across you, I didn't even know about Grace Bible Church. But I remember there were these clips that they used to play of your preachings.
Wow.
And this is when we were growing up. This is like back in Mpumalanga. And I used to listen to those clips. And one day I was at Rema. This is now much later when I'm working. And I think you were preaching at the time, standing in for Pastor Ray, who wasn't well on the day. And I remember thinking, this man sounds familiar. And I went and I asked my brother about the clips. And he says, yeah, that's the guy. That's the guy we used to listen to. I'm saying that because I got a message from someone who's from Angola as well, who says they've been impacted by your teachings. Like, how do you pause and think about that sometimes? Like how much you penetrate beyond here?
Sure, Clement. I think it's as when people give feedback, to be honest with you. I think I've become more aware of it much more later in my life. I think one went into this just to try and serve the best you could. I've not been one who has been really great at maybe journaling everything, checking the track record. I just was one who went into what I did to try and do the best that I could, serve wherever I could. It's only now, years later, that I'm becoming more aware of that. And I must be honest, it's very humbling, Clement. I must tell you the truth. It's very humbling because, when you never set out to necessarily be number one, the most whatever, but at least I know when I did what I did, I tried to do my best, and give my best at it and have people help you to be your best. And I think it's only now I'm starting to be more aware, and I'm very grateful. But it also says to me the level of responsibility is more. To me it says it makes me aware of the criticalness of what we do and how we must be much more serious, careful, more committed, and understand how much it impacts people's lives. And I'm humbled to hear that you're listening to my clips years ago.
Oh no, your clips were popular.
Wow,
they were quite popular. Also, you have this unique voice. I do have I remember just listening as I listen. What a unique voice as well. Like you do have a unique voice.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that. No, but let me tell you, my dad actually told me that when he was alive. He actually told me that, and I don't know. I listen to me. I don't like the way I sound.
Nobody likes the way they sound. I don't like the way I sound. Okay, so we're going to play some music. I've got a tendency of when I enjoy conversations, I can talk and talk and talk without playing music. I don't want to make that mistake today. When you are not listening to gospel, what are you listening to? What is sometimes the person you go to?
Yeah.
Music that still speaks to you.
Let me talk about the genres.
To.
Let me talk about the genres. I listen to all genres mostly. Yeah. I love jazz.
Mapiano
I listen to. Oh yeah. Though I must say, I don't like songs that have bad lyrics in them.
Yes.
I'm a bit sensitive to that in whatever genre.
Yeah.
But I listen to all genres, by the way. And I like all genres.
Yeah.
All genres. I have a very healthy appetite for music. Everything.
Afro
soul. Yeah. I listen to all of it because I come from a home that loved music. My late dad loved music and he listened to music very broadly. So I consume all of it.
I was told
gospel music being number one.
Of course, yeah. I told you like Lyra as well?
Oh, I love Lyra.
Yeah.
She's just incredible.
She is.
Yeah. And Zonke, Bonke, I just love them. Yeah. Look, we have a number of musicians in our country who are some of the best. Anywhere I go in the world, I tell them, you guys, we have some of the richest music ever in this country. Because also it comes through our cultural differences and the style, the way it's written, and just the way people present themselves. So I feast a lot on the entire spectrum of the music in South Africa, which is really good music.
All right, so I'll start us off with Zonke Jigizinto.
Voices in my dreams telling me where I should go, saying over here is where I wanna be. There's melodies in me, yeah, saying this is who I am. Dingabayindoni na ngaphandle kwakho mina. There ain't no way to show you. There ain't no way to show you. Ain't no way to show you. Now so take it easy, don't. When you smile, when you dance.
Can you sing, Bishop?
Yeah, I can.
You try.
They say I can sing. I don't know. You sing quite well, eh?
Yeah, I should come join the worship team.
Yeah, you must come sing for us.
I must come
sometime.
lead worship. Okay, so that's Zonke Dika, and I've got some WhatsApp voice notes coming on 070 702 1702.
Clement, I wish to wish Bishop Mosa Sono a happy birthday. Many more years to come, Pastor. You are such an inspiration. You have stood the test of time, starting from the time when you were still in Mufolo, and in your humble beginnings, you have remained humble. May God continue to bless and keep you. May He also continue to bless your wife, Osgege. She is such a blessing, humble human being. I love you both, and may God richly bless you and your children and your children's children. And may He continue to bless your congregation. It's a blessing just to have you under, people to be under your leadership. May God continue to preserve you, and may He prevail with His grace on your life. God richly bless you. Thank you so much. Bless your heart.
Clement and Bishop Mosa Sono, he's such a great man. Babalo in Orange Farm, he impacted me. I am where I am because of his teachings. Not just because of his teachings, also he taught us that we should rely on the word, not on what he preaches. That was his preaching. Bishop, thank you so much. Great show, Climate.
Clement, the funny thing about the story that you are sharing, I bumped into Pastor Sono when he was on King Mashabela's show, and I was just drawn to his voice. And then from there on, when the callers called in and started raving and crying and just giving him praises, I could feel Lena or no, these people were touched. Lena, I am touched myself. Ever since that day, I've been following his sermons online via the musical apps and whatnot. And I believe you me, it is one relationship that I value so much. So thank you, Babsono, for being the man that you are, and for preaching in the manner that you are, and for God touching you in the way that He's touched you, so that your message can be heard by us, by hating people who don't go to church much. But today, Lena Seketseba Orai, Wabatlia or at least Ukokwale Matlo, or Rapele, Olebohe. And happy birthday, Pastor. Happy birthday. And I thank God for a person like yourself. Amen. Moyahabo in Johannesburg.
Amen to that, Moyahabo. Thank you so much for the WhatsApps. Yeah, that's.
I'm humbled.
Yeah, that's a beautiful one.
Yeah, I'm thankful to that. Really.
Talk to us about Grace Bible Church. It's really one of the biggest churches, but sometimes when we see the success, we never hear about the background story of the church itself. How was it founding it? Because we see it now as a big church, but you started somewhere.
Yes. Well, in 1982, I was sanctioned by Pastor Ray after I had worked at Rhema for a year or two, and he assigned me to go and help one of their pastors who had started a Rhema church. It was a branch of Rhema, actually, Rhema Soweto. And the pastor leading it was Andre Knutse, a young Afrikaner, Muruti, who lived in Hillbrow. Church was growing. And with the church growing and more people coming, he was struggling quite a lot with the cultural dynamics and knowing how to, reach the people in Soweto. So Pastor Ray then said that they want me to go and help as an associate pastor there, which I did do with my late friend Jerry Lichela. Then I came 1982, served in the church, did everything, cleaning, leading the music, praying, counseling, interpreting, leading a cell group, whatever, just helped as an associate pastor. A year later, He then moved to something else and recommended that I come in as the pastor, 4th of September 1983. I remember the day. And that's the day I started. And we were still Rema Soweto then. And then we lost the venue, had to move to Isaacson Primary School in Moroka. So we used Isaacson Primary School and were assisted by the late Principal Noche. 34 people at the time when we started, mostly young people and children, just a few adults. Nothing in the bank, because when I became pastor, there were things that were transferred to me, but there were no funds really. So we started literally from scratch. And the other sad part is that, people who had Bible college training, when I became pastor, 15 of them left with immediate effect when I became the pastor.
Oh my
God. Yeah.
How did that complicate things?
It became hard, Clement. I remember when we were at Isaacson High Primary School and I looked around, I realized I seemed to be the only person in the crowd who had a semblance of what church should be. Yeah. And I'm 22. I'm 22 years old at the time, and we've got a few elderly people in the church, but mostly young people and children. But Clement, I say to people, Buruti is a call. I can tell you, my brother. I say this with confidence. It's a call that comes from God. You, of course, need to be trained. You need to go to school. You need to learn. But all in all, it's a call. And when God's called you, He grants you the grace. And so I'll fast forward. Then in Isaacson, we grew from 34 people to 100 people. And then we moved to Church of the Holy Ghost in 1984. The people there were using this church on Saturday. We used it on Sunday. They allowed us to use it on Sunday. And then we moved from there to Hlengiwe. That is now 1985 when we moved to Hlengiwe, because we grew from 100 people to 300 people. And then we moved to Hlengiwe, and we grew from 300 to 400. Then we moved to Homemakers Festival grounds, which was a very difficult place because it was just a steel structure with no walls, nothing on it. We had to set up everything. That's the time when our church grew a lot. We stayed there till 2001. And we moved to the current building in 2001 in Pimville. But the background story, Clement, was we had to bring other people on board, get others to serve together, train leadership. I had to go and learn from other ministries. I visited lots of churches, including Rema, and everything they did, from the administration to how they run the church, and had friends like Dick Koza, who's always been helping me, and Dr. Elijah Maswanganye, who has always been my mentor, the late Mfundisi Horisami Mtembu, and of course, the late Pastor Ray McCauley. Building a church, and I like to put it this way, like anything, a church is built one life at a time, one day at a time, one event at a time. And you need a lot of help with people advising you and all of that. But that's where we are today.
So from the 34 people back there at the school to how many now?
Well, we fill out Orlando Stadium with 40,000 people by God's grace.
I mean, how is that not God?
Yeah. And that I think that's why every time I talk about it, I become emotional. Because the reality, Clement, is that there's nothing in me, to be honest, from a natural standpoint that could say stands out. I was an ordinary guy, still an ordinary person to date. Grew up, I wasn't that outstanding student in class. I wasn't one of those guys when I speak, everybody listens, and for that reason, I say this to say to people, no matter where they are and what they feel about themselves, if they do what God has graced them to do, they will be second to none. I think God uses everybody, and everybody can be the best they can be regardless of their background. Because my story hasn't been a story, I didn't come from an upper class society. I was raised in an ordinary way, and to see this today, I'm humbled. Every time I stand and preach, Clement, I become extremely emotional.
Yeah. Oh, what a story. It's 10:33. We're going to get the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. When we come back, I'll start with your calls and more of your WhatsApps as well. as we continue this conversation with Bishop Mosa Sono. Sfiso, good morning.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. The ANC is still willing to sit with the DA to discuss other money bills that form part of the budget and still need Parliament's approval. The party has once again said that if it gets the much needed growth in the economy, there won't be any need for another VAT increase in future. The passing of the fiscal framework and the revenue proposals was the first hurdle yesterday for the ANC and the GNU, with more clashes expected when the National Assembly and NCOP consider other money bills. The Gauteng Health Department says it plans to challenge a recent court judgment that declared its failure to provide radiation oncology unlawful and unconstitutional. Advocacy group Cancer Alliance took the department to court for allegedly violating patients' constitutional rights to health care. A backlog list from March 2023 showed that more than 2,000 cancer patients were waiting to be treated, some for over 3 years. And Hungary's government has announced that it will withdraw from the International Criminal Court. This is just before Prime Minister Viktor Orban is due to receive his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu, who is the subject of an ICC arrest warrant. Hungary's government will initiate the withdrawal procedure today in accordance with the constitutional and international legal framework. Those are the headlines. This EWN and more at 11 or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
A very good morning. We start in the city of Johannesburg once more with an update from the southwestern townships. We're seeing some pressure, Chris Hani Road as well as Klipspruit Valley Road, M1 North. There's free-flowing traffic now, just stop-and-go traffic in the city centre. Lillian Goy Street, formerly known as Bree Street, still seeing those rehabilitation works, seeing some upgrade works taking place after the infamous July 19 explosion. Volmaran Street, also quite slow, westbound towards Johannesburg Park Station. Now, if you're heading towards the northern parts, Sandton, there's queuing traffic on Main Road passing through Magaliesig. It's then Kramerville, Marlborough Drive, quite slow, westbound towards the M1 highway. In Randburg, there's slow-moving traffic in Strydom Park, southbound towards Ferndale, while in the nation's capital, a bit of pressure still in the CBD, Bloed, Boom, as well as Johannes Ramukwase Street. If there's anything else, please SMS on 31702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Make soccer season legendary with Hollywood Bets. Aziz Shagay, Let's Play takes your disky passion to the next dimension. Light up the games with your best bet slip and stand a chance to win your share of 2 million rand in prizes, including a brand new Toyota Fortuner. Bet a minimum of 10 rand on any soccer fixture to qualify. T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. Hollywood Bets supports responsible gambling. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counselling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710.
Dear Journal, day 4,548 of trying to be an adult. I used to believe that I have 206 bones in my body. Now, I can hear that I have 206 bones in my body.
Aggressively realizing your age? Get covered at pineapple.co.za. It's simple and like 19 Rand a day, so it's 100% insurance for you. Underwritten by Old Mutual Alternative Risk Transfer Insurer Limited, licensed non-life insurer and authorized FSP. Premiums are risk profile dependent.
702 was in conversation with Altron, celebrating 60 years of solving real-world problems and discussing their plans to rebuild and re-energize Johannesburg through partnership and collaboration.
Yeah, it's a real privilege. You know, I'm only the fourth CEO in the 60-year history of Altron. We transitioned, obviously, my predecessor, a well-known gentleman who now chairs Eskom, Tetu Nyati, who we were also privileged to have with us last night. He really did that sort of professionalization of the business in 2017, moving from a family to the kind of business it is today. So I think it's really a great privilege for me to lead this business and to be part of this business that has stood, I guess, the ups and downs of both Joburg and the South African economy over the last 60 years.
Visit Altron.com for more info. Altron, a technology industry leader since 1965.
Hanging out with Clement
on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
It's 22 minutes before 11 o'clock. We're hanging out with Bishop Mosa Sono, the founder and bishop of Grace Bible Church. And I want to give you an opportunity as well on the line. You can call on 011-883-0702. Please be quick and sharp because there are so many calls. So I want to give as many many of you an opportunity. I'll go to your WhatsApps as well on 0727021702. Let's start with, is it Dr. Elijah in Johannesburg? Dr. Maswanganyi, good morning.
Thanks for having me in 702 Radio Live Show. Thanks for having me.
Thank you,
and
Dr.
all your
Maswanganyi.
listeners.
Yeah, you've been a friend of the bishop for how long now?
Oh, for donkey years.
And
for many years.
Yeah. That's what kind of relationship have you enjoyed with him? What is it about him you think we don't really know that much?
Well, number one, he is a credible man of God or leader by credibility, integrity, I mean character, self-discipline, self-control, and self-respect. And secondly, he is a leader. As you know, there is a leadership bankruptcy and a poverty of leadership, not only in South Africa, but globally. I appreciate Bishop Mosa Sono intelligently because I have watched him develop, grow in wisdom, grow in vision, grow in insights, grow in selflessness, grow in the spirit of a servant, to serve God and his people. And because of some of these things, I respect him, and I am not the only one wishing him happy birthday. It is South Africa. It is Africa and beyond, because the wider body of Christ, we all look to Bishop Mosa Sono for additional spiritual leadership. If you attend his annual conferences or his Easter conventions at Orlando Stadium, he has a message that would direct individuals, families, church, society, the business, the sporting world. He is highly inclusive in his vision.
Yeah. Oh, Dr. Maswanganyi, thank you so much for that. That's like one of your spiritual fathers.
Yeah, please allow me to break protocol. Papa Nakensa, thank you so much. I'm deeply, deeply, deeply humbled. Dr. Maswanganyi came 1985 to our church. We had organized a marriage seminar. I was single at the time. And everything went wrong on that day.
Yeah.
People didn't come. It was raining. The sound system was misbehaving. And here's this world-renowned preacher that I've invited who came to come and preach at our church. And I remember delaying the service from starting, hoping more people would come. And finally, I gave him the mic reluctantly. And he took 10 minutes before preaching just to encourage me and to tell me I'm a good leader. I never forget that. And he wasn't staying in a hotel. He was staying at my home with my parents, sleeping on my 3/4 bed. He is my spiritual father. I don't know what to say. I'm just dumbfounded in who he is. And I would really want to say, Kangwina Papa, thank you. Thank you even for just taking the trouble to phone and for all your words of commendation. To date, I still go and meet him and talk to him.
That's
He
amazing.
advises me. I don't make any decisions without talking to him, major decisions. And I'm dumbfounded.
No, thank you, Dr. Masongani, for the call. Oh, I've got one of your brothers in Christ, Pastor Boshoff. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement. Good morning, Bishop Mosa.
Oh, Pastor Ed.
Yeah, the birthday man is here.
This is your Afrikaans brother.
Yeah.
Wishing you happy birthday.
Baie dankie, my broer. Baie dankie,
I
man.
love you to bits.
I love you.
You're
I
such
love
a great
you,
man
Pastor
of God.
Ed. Oh, my goodness.
And what a privilege that it is and has been to serve God with you for the last 35 years. And to see change in South Africa. And you've been a pioneer and a great man of integrity, character. I mean, anybody and everybody speaks highly of you. I really just want to wish you well on this day and say I've got the greatest respect, regard, and honor for you. You're a great, great man of God. Humble, one of the most humble people I know, but at the same time, mightily used by God. You're a true general in the faith, and you are what our country needs. Like Prophet Elijah said now that, our country there's a vacuum of leaders in South Africa, and you're one of the leaders that have stood and stayed steady and strong and constant and consistent and always caring about the poor, what matters in this country. So I thank you for that. Also, thank you for opening my eyes to many things as a white South African. I believe we have a great future. I believe with people like you, we will rebuild this country and see poverty broken over this country and see the blessing that we've always trusted God for, a united South Africa. So your voice is key, and I really just want to pray that God keeps you many, many, many years and that God magnifies your voice, not only in South Africa, but all over the world. But our country needs you. And thank you for staying true and strong and being a true brother. I love you.
Love you too.
I respect you. I hold you in high esteem.
Love you too, Pastor Art, and thank you for being a good friend and for a genuine man of God. You know, Clement, I say this. I believe to the core of my heart that what Jesus Christ does and what the church does is really the hope of the world. Pastor Art, when we met years ago, we went through lots of clashes and arguments, but in a good and godly way. We help one another from the different worlds we come from. If there's a man I would want to be with me in battle, it's this man. And South Africa is blessed to have people like him. Leaders who lead in different contexts, different areas, but who are genuine leaders and who love Christ and who are true friends. You know, he's a real man. He's a real friend, a true friend. When we've talked about things, we know that when we leave the room, whatever we talked about stays in the room. And whatever I say to him, to his face, I'll say when he's not there with me. Thank you, Pastor Art, for taking the time to call. I really appreciate you and I love you, my brother.
All right, let me take this one before we go to the next song. Pastor Don Phillips, good morning.
You know, Clement, what you've got there in the studio is one of those guys. I call him a guy because he's my best friend. He's one of those who make me feel so normal as a pastor.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't fit the stereotype, and that makes me feel so comfortable. My friend, my brother, the way I love you, the way I honor you, we're not repeating the same, we're expressing our heart feelings
I love you.
on the role that we have played. You know, I always tell you this. He doesn't want me to call him my leader, but he is my leader. When we started those many years ago, I would watch you from a distance, the way you handle yourself, the way your disposition and how you communicate things. It would make me feel so proud to be an upcoming black pastor in South Africa, even in those days.
Goodness.
You know, you became a beacon of hope to us on what you did with such humility and such dignity. You and Sister leading a church in Soweto, leading us in the nation. You know, my friend, I love you with all of my heart. I want you to know that, you know, not other than Orlando Pirates doing so well.
Yeah, I know. Tell them that we are pirate supporters in forward. Tell them. Pastor Don, thank you for calling.
You know, Bishop Mosa, I love you, my brother. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Pastor Don. Thank you for taking the trouble to phone. These are my two friends. You know, Pastor Don, you know, when he was serving as an associate pastor in the church, he's leading now Mtata. I got invited to go and preach there. And we just connected and we became great friends. And it's been incredible to see what God's done through his life. One of the incredible leaders in this, our lovely country. Clement, our country has got great leaders, my brother. And Pastor Don is among those. And both these pastors who've called, these are friends. These are people that sikanga sonke, in a good way, in a good way. But most of all, these are people that there isn't anything I couldn't talk to them about. And even Pastor Dick Koza. You know, these are people I know if I miss it, they'll tell me straight. If I have an issue, I can confide in them and talk to them about. Thank you for calling. Hey.
Let's give you a break and play one of your favorite songs by Chloe Nwango.
The Midday Report.
Weekdays,
12 to 1.
Ndumiseni and Tuli. What is the status of the DA in the GNU?
We are observing them and we want to see whether they've learned any lesson in the portfolio committee. If that plays itself again in the House, I think it will be perfectly obvious that the DA has voluntarily defined itself outside the GNU.
Has the DA made a decision about how to proceed?
We are not going to vote for the framework. The process that was followed in yesterday's finance meeting was flawed.
Krabo Kakao.
The Midday Report
with Mandy Wiener.
12 to 1 on 702.
702.
You wouldn't want to pay more than you need for your medical aid, so why overpay for car insurance? Switch to Outsurance and you could save big every month. Lorette, who is a 61-year-old woman, is a real Outsurance client who saves a too good to miss 725 Rand a month on her 2024 BMW X1. Isn't it time you got the real deal? Don't pay more. Switch and save today. SMS out to 45142. That's out to 45142. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insured FSP. T's and C's online.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric, mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
Hanging out with Clement
on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
Siyavumelana muhle lo Jehova, siyavumelana akekho ofana naye. Simile nje imisebenzi yakhe, siphila nje imisebenzi yakhe, sihamba nje imisebenzi yakhe. Igama lakho liyakufakazela uma funga angajiki. Igama lakho liyakufakazela. Ubani ofana naye? Muhle uJehova, ungubaba wethu yena impela. Akalala ngosela kavumi, nabantwana bakhe ngibonile. Unjalo igama.
What's up, Bishop, bro? What's up, Clement? What's the go? No, I'm joking. Good morning to you, Clement. Good morning, Bishop. Just wanted to send a huge shout out to you both, Clement. Send a shout out to Bishop as well, my Bishop as well. You know, just want to say thank you and happy birthday as well. Happy birthday, Bishop, and huge thank you and a huge shout out to you and Imam Gege for all the teachings. We'd like to thank you for your faithfulness to the calling and to the mantle. Thank you for taking on your mantle and doing all you do with excellence. Thank you for your teachings. Thank you for allowing us young people Kokereking to serve, you know, for not sidelining us, for also putting us in the front lines and also allowing us to be part of the vision of growing to 1,000 churches. You know, as teenagers, 20-year-olds, you still allow us to serve within the various departments, and we just want to thank you for not sidelining us. We really appreciate it as young people. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and happy birthday to Ndade Bishop. We really thank God for his life. We are privileged that in our generation we get to witness such leadership, one of integrity and servant leadership. You know, he's a true definition of servant leadership for me. My question to him is, because yes, wahola, and I think you start pondering on the issue of legacy and where the church is headed, because I get, to put it plainly, it's like Moa Yanko Haufi versus Moa Janting. So what does, like, how is that conversation in his head? What does it make him anxious when he thinks about, one day I will not be here, what will this church look like? How do I prepare for that time when that time comes, even though I won't be here?
Thank you so much for that. I'll give the bishop an opportunity to respond in a moment. Let's quickly take Felix first from Centurion. Felix, thank you for holding. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement. Good morning, Bishop.
Good morning.
Sure.
Morning, sir.
Yes, Bishop, in short, I would like to wish him a happy birthday. Clement, the man that is sitting in front of you is a man of humility and humor. Some of us, he builded us. We are where we are because of him. For the past years, through his teachings, his preachings, when we got to Grace Bible Church, we were average people. Now, some of us, we are holding positions in the society through his teachings and preachings. If I can quote one quickly, he once said, you need to know and identify the voice of God. If we can do that, you can able to do that, you will never miss a chance. I would like to say, happy birthday, Bishop.
Thank you so much.
I'm your son. You know me very well. I wish you many, many years to come.
Wonderful, Felix. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for
so
that,
much,
Felix.
Felix.
A question about legacy?
Yes, I started 15 years ago to work on the passing of the baton, as we call it in church circles. It was a very difficult conversation to have 15 years ago because it's kind of hard to think about the church and talk about you in the past. But I guess there's a rich history we have of looking at how other churches are doing And of course, in the charismatic movement, we've seen some of the churches when that time comes and there was no preparation done. So I first sat down with our leadership to talk about it. We had to look at things like what our constitution says. I've put a plan in place of training the next gen leadership. As you heard one of the comments of the young people, we were very intentional about the involvement of young people in our church, them leading whilst we are still around, whilst we can also mentor them like we've been mentored by both Pastor Ray McCauley, Dr. Maswanganye and the like. So it's an ongoing process. I think the hardest day for me, not necessarily from the willingness part, but from an emotional part, will be the day when I finally step away. However, I've already started working my way out of certain roles and to also define the role of what is called presiding bishop, because there's going to be a presiding bishop post my era. And what does the presiding bishop do? Of course, it's about oversight over the entire denomination, if you want to call it that. It's about training of leaders. It's about mentoring other people. It's about certain programs that are exclusively done by the presiding bishop. So we are starting to define that even as I speak. And I'm letting go of a number of other responsibilities to focus on those responsibilities that would be ascribed to the presiding bishop. I think the day when I finally I'm letting go bit by bit, certain things I'm no longer doing. However, there's a day when I'm going to finally step away. I think that's going to be the most difficult day. I don't intend to retire, to be honest. I just intend to change the role that I play. But I will remain connected to Grace Bible Church. I mean, this is what God led me to till the last day of my life on this earth.
Bishop, thank you so much for making time. And I'm grateful that you came to us on your birthday. And I hope that we've celebrated you. We use this feature to really show our appreciation for people that have really made a difference. And you have yourself. You have impacted people beyond just the people who come to Grace Bible Church. There are many of us who learned from you through your teachings that we find on recordings. So this was our moment of saying thank you for your contribution.
Thank you so much, Clement, and thank you for the kindness of everybody. And I pray God bless you all. And I also pray that in all that God's done in my life, may God do the same in your lives. Because as I said, I'm no special person. It's just how God can be such a good God. And I think today is about the goodness of God. And I'm thankful to have seen that and thankful for all the commendation and the praise. And I say praise and glory goes to Jesus Christ.
Amen. It's just after 11 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Good morning, I'm Sfiso Zulu. The ANC is still willing to sit with the DA to discuss other money bills that form part of the budget and still need Parliament's approval. The ANC has reiterated that once it gets the much-needed growth in the economy, there won't be any need for another VAT increase in future. The passing of the fiscal framework and the revenue proposals was the first hurdle for the ANC and the GNU, with more clashes expected when the National Assembly and NCOP consider other money bills. Babalondense takes a look.
The National Assembly successfully adopted the fiscal framework yesterday, an integral part of the budget, which includes the VAT increase. The two houses of Parliament will tomorrow have to process another batch of money bills, which include the Taxation Laws Amendment Bill and other legislation. But the head of the ANC's Economic Transformation Committee, Zuko Kodlimbi, doesn't expect a different posture from the DA, but says their door remains open.
We've been talking to them till today, so we've kept an open door with them. We are still willing to talk to any political party and listen to their views on how they think we should approach the other bills that are coming on Friday.
DA spokesperson Vili Okam says the DA's position won't change on the other money bills, saying other parties will also vote against them when they see that the VAT increase remains in place.
They have been fooled by the ANC to think that Treasury will take that out. Treasury has got no power to take that out.
Babalondense, Eyewitness News.
The Gauteng Health Department says it plans to challenge a recent court judgment that declared its failure to provide radiation oncology unlawful and unconstitutional. Advocacy group Cancer Alliance took the department to court for allegedly violating patients' constitutional rights to healthcare. A backlog list from March 2023 showed that more than 2,000 cancer patients were waiting to be treated, some for over 3 years. Although funds were allocated by the Gauteng Treasury 2 years ago, delays in procurement processes led to challenges in clearing the backlog of cancer patients. The court has since ordered the department to update the backlog list within 45 days and then submit a report on the progress in providing radiation oncology services. But Gauteng Health spokesperson Mutalatale Modiba says the provincial department has filed an application for leave to appeal the judgment.
Having carefully studied and considered the judgment and order, the legal team representing the department is of the view that there are several substantive grounds of appeal, which, if left unchallenged, will greatly be prejudicial to the patients undergoing radiation oncology services at our various facilities and may set an undesirable precedent.
And Hungary's government has announced that it will withdraw from the International Criminal Court. This is just before Prime Minister Viktor Orban was due to receive his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu, who is the subject of an ICC arrest warrant. Hungary's government will initiate the withdrawal procedure today in accordance with the constitutional and international legal framework. The ICC, based in The Hague, had stressed it would be Hungary's legal obligation and responsibility towards other state parties to enforce the country's or the court's decisions. Gold is trading at $3,153.19 an ounce. The rand is at 18.78 to the dollar, 24.73 to the pound, 20.70 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $72.70 a barrel.
Still no major reported incidents throughout Gauteng. That pressure still building from the CBD heading towards Kilani, as well as Langlaagte as you head towards the CBD on Main Reef Road. Church Street also quite slow. This is in the Mayfair region. While in Midrand, a bit of stop-and-go traffic. N1 north from the Buccleuch interchange to New Road. Please drive with care.
A cloudy day in store for Gauteng with scattered showers and thunder showers expected. The temperatures will peak at highs between 17 and 20 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour. The ANC is still willing to sit with the DA to discuss other money bills that form parts of the budget and still need Parliament's approval.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with Clement Manyathela
On 702.
Let's Walk the Talk, streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856,
92.7 and 106 FM.
Seven minutes after 11 o'clock. Dumelang, welcome to the third and final hour of the Clement Manyathela show. Thank you so much for staying with us here on 702. And I must apologize that I didn't take the many calls that were coming through. Because there was just so much. And I wanted to really just surprise Bishop Mosa Sono with some of the calls from some of his friends. So apologies if you were holding for too long and I couldn't get to your call. Apologies if also you sent your WhatsApps that I really couldn't get to a lot of. It's now time for our Thursday dialogue.
The Dialogue with Clement Manyathela.
It's not just another roundtable discussion.
Let's Walk the Talk on 702.
So on our Thursday dialogue today, we are looking deeply into how the NPA bungled this Omotoso case. After 8 years of testimonies and delays, this case against this Nigerian televangelist Timothy Omotoso and his co-accused ended in an acquittal for all three of them. And it's a shocking one because the judge, in fact, doesn't necessarily say these people are acquitted because maybe there's no evidence or he truly believes that the accused is not guilty, but because the NPA really just bungled this case. The judge, in fact, in this matter described the case as shallow. She criticized the unethical conduct of the prosecutors in their incompetent cross-examination. So basically, the prosecutors failed to pass the test of proving the charges beyond reasonable doubt. In fact, even the basic test of prima facie wasn't proven. So Judge Emma Schoeman really was hard on the prosecution team and the NPA in how this entire case was handled. And I want us to figure out what went wrong. Because if you remember the testimonies, there was a time when through and during testimonies, people were just shocked at how someone who is supposed to be a senior leader in a church, who's supposed to be respected in community, could have treated those victims like that. So joining me now via Zoom are two journalists who've been covering this story from the onset. Siposetu Boy, who is an Eastern Cape-based journalist with True FM, joining us via Zoom. Siposetu, thank you so much for making time. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Clement, and to the listeners, and thank you so much for having me here.
We also have Lerato Fekis, who's also based in the Eastern Cape, works for the SABC News. Thank you, Lerato, for also making time for us. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Clement, to you and your listeners.
And I'll bring in an advocate as well, just as we continue with this conversation. I want to hear from you as well on 011-883-0702 if you've got some thoughts around how the NPA conducted this entire trial. You can send your WhatsApps as well on 072-702-1702. Before we really start, maybe you missed what Judge Emma Schoeman said as she was making a ruling on this matter. And let me just give you a sense of what she said yesterday.
The cross-examination of the accused was desultory in the extreme. No thought went into it. The trial was set down for 9 days to deal with the evidence of the defense. Accused 1 testified for a whole day, setting out his defense. But the cross-examination of accused 1 lasted less than a morning session. He was not cross-examined on his denial with reference to the complainant's testimonies. No attempt was made to elicit inconsistencies or improbabilities. His cross-examination consisted mainly of putting a very limited synopsis of the respected complainant's evidence to him, which evidence the accused denied, then putting it to him that what they testified about is correct. It is not that there had been little scope for cross-examination. There was ample evidence that the veracity of his evidence could have been tested against. The cross-examination was shallow and lacking the intention to uncover the truth. Similarly ineffectual and superficial was the cross-examination of accused 2 and 3 that amounted to no cross-examination at all. They did not deviate from their respective versions or contradicted themselves. In the instant matter, Mr. Doberman is correct that the questions asked by the prosecutors in the instant matter did not amount to cross-examination at all. The defense brought an application for a mistrial where copious affidavits were filed. Mr. Ntelwa averred in one of such affidavits that he did not know that digital penetration of genitalia constituted rape. It is inconceivable that a prosecutor with 14 years' experience that is involved in a case where rape is one of the crimes accused 1 faced does not know what the definition of rape is. He was either extremely incompetent or dishonest when deposing to such an affidavit. Especially so as the accused evidence was not placed in dispute through proper cross-examination. When deciding whether the state has proved its case beyond reasonable doubt, this matter falls into the category where, in my view, the explanations of the accused are improbable, and I don't subjectively believe them. However, due to the uncertainty of the actions of the state and the lack of proper cross-examination, I cannot find that the accused version are so improbable that they cannot reasonably possibly be true. The accused bore no onus to convince the court of their innocence. I'm of the view, in the light of all the circumstances of the case, that the state has not proved its case beyond reasonable doubt. Yes.
Quiet, please.
The accused are found not guilty and are discharged on all the charges.
So that is the judge there, Judge Skuman, as she was finding them basically not guilty. They're now acquitted. So let's start now with the journalists that have covered the story from the onset. And I'm interested in your initial reaction, Siposeti. Were you surprised like everybody else, or having covered this case and you've seen maybe this incompetence that the judge speaks of, you knew at some point that it could very well be that this matter ends up in acquittal?
Well, Clement, my initial reaction was shock. It was frustration and just disappointment more than anything. And considering the fact that we've been covering the story and since 2017 for Lerato, and to hear that everything that the witnesses had told the court has now resulted to the acquittal of the charges against the trio was quite shocking. And I must say that when the judge was reading out the judgment and just detailing where the NPA had gone wrong, I was preparing myself mentally for what is to come. So as she was going through her judgment, I knew that this case was about to take a turn. And when she did say they're acquitted of all the charges, it was in that moment when the worst feeling came by, which is shock and disappointment of what is going to happen moving forward. But more interesting for me was the fact that this is now a situation where one of the witnesses who took to the stand and shared her ordeal was inside court, one. Two, one person who was at the forefront, Clement, when this particular trial had started, Pamela Mabini, was not there to have a reaction or be in a platform where she says how she is now reacting after that particular judgment. So it has been a very shocking yet very disappointing a day yesterday and today, because we're still trying to make sense of everything.
Lerato, how about you? Were you surprised, or at some point during this trial you saw that the NPA are messing this thing up? How did you react after this judgment yesterday?
Morning to you, Clement. I think someone who has been covering the story, I wasn't really surprised. And I'll tell you why, of two instances where I wasn't surprised. The defense lawyer, Peter Doberman, Clement, has been for a long time driving the narrative that all charges against the accused must be dropped, going as far as calling for the implementation of Section 174, which is the dropping of all charges, because he said that this trial was not fair, citing the issue of former State Prosecutor Manyathela, who recused himself from this case, and how throughout the case, Peter Doberman was trying to push the narrative that Manyathela had suborned the witnesses to commit perjury, and was saying because the witnesses were not testifying the ultimate truth when they took the stand, but rather a watered-down version or influenced version by Manyathela, they could not take their evidence to be the entire truth, and based on that, their witnesses were compromised. So as time went on and that narrative was keep on coming forth, and he was standing on the same thing. I mean, Peter Doberman had pretty much nothing else to stand on but just saying that because his witnesses have been influenced, and I've got proof thereof, have been influenced by Manyathela, this case cannot stand. And then secondly, Clement, the issue of the cross-examination was a shock to me, even as a journalist, to realize that the state had 9 days, Clement, to do a proper cross-examination for the witnesses. And the power of a cross-examination is that it has the ability to start poking holes at the witness's statement. It is a prime time where the state has now got a chance to really try corner the witnesses to drive their own narrative, to try get some type of conviction or to go towards what they want to say. So when you've got 9 days on a trial that started in 2018, we've got now the ample time, 9 days given to you by the law to try and poke holes at this evidence that's before you with 32 charges. And then you only cross-examine the main witness, Omotoso, like the judge said, for the morning part. And the morning part is between 8 and 11 because at 11 o'clock we have tea. So that pretty much says that they used 3 hours to cross-examine someone who was facing 31 charges. And Clement, I'm not speaking of a cross-examination that says I try corner Clement and to try to get him to admit to guilt. The cross-examination was so weak in the sense that it was literally like asking Clement, were you in Mhlanga on the 5th of October? And Clement says no. And then I moved to the next question. So for her to call it disastrous, and the judge says that it was a disastrous, this was perfectly correct because it wasn't a thing where we thought as journalists that were being cross-examined, they were being tested, they were being trying to get a certain narrative for them to go by. It was literally asking questions, Clement. Did you insert your finger into this person? No, I didn't. Move on to the next question. And then you ask yourself, these were lawyers chosen by the NPA, the best of the best lawyers in this case to present a trial that has got international coverage. And they used 3 hours to cross-examine one of the biggest witnesses in this case, Omotoso. And then the other 2 witnesses as well, Clement, when they got to cross-examine Uzukiswa and also Lusanda, it was the same thing, posing one-word questions, getting one-word answers, and that's a wrap. And then you have to use that as a judge, as a basis of your judgment. They were not going to lose. They stood no chance at all when you look at the 2 things I've cited.
Yeah, and the judge did say that, it's not that I believe that this accused is not guilty, but this is not about what I believe or not. In court, we deal with evidence, and you've got to prove your case. Sipesetu, when I'm just getting shocked as Lerato just explains how terrible of work the NPA executed here. One of the things that surprised me was when the judge mentioned that how is it that a prosecutor cannot know the definition of rape and that rape included penetration in its very core definition. Is that a moment that surprised you guys as well as you were covering this matter? I don't know how the NPA even explains that.
That's true. Like Ulerato has explained in brief detail, Clement, it was shocking, but more, what was more shocking was the fact that you get to understand terms in law that you yourself are learning about them for the first time. And now you're trying to make sense of what exactly should happen. Like she's saying, that it was a very sad case, but also it was shocking that it only took such a while for the NPA to even consider maybe resourcing a bigger team to help with the case. And I think more what was also shocking, Clement, you remember in 2019 that the defense lawyer Peter Doberman had argued that the PE High Court at the time had no jurisdiction to hear 7 rape and sexual assault charges were allegedly occurred in PE. So there were lots of issues that one would have thought that maybe the NPA would, prove and come forward with more evidence that could possibly give weight to the case. So it was shocking, more than anything, very disappointing at the same time. Remember, this has been a case that has started in 2017, and to get to the 2nd of April of 2025, and 3 people who these witnesses bravely took to the stand and shared what happened to them, placing the accused in their stories, and then the NPA comes in and does not protect or defend or state their case authentically to hold with the case was quite shocking. It was shocking and disappointing, Clement.
Yeah. What happens now? Lerato, I don't know if you guys heard anything from Omotoso himself. Is he planning to sue the state? Because, what stops him from doing that? Having spent so many years behind bars and the state still being unable to prove beyond reasonable doubt the charges they brought against him. Have you, from what he said yesterday, did he indicate that he may be prepared to sue the state?
Clement, when he spoke to Omotoso yesterday, he spoke to us briefly as he was about to leave court.
Yeah.
And the two questions we posed to him as to what is the way forward now for him, and he said he wants to just go home and sleep. And then there was the issue of deportation, because you understand that he is illegally in the country and the Home Affairs have been hampering hard on that. So we have heard yesterday from the NPA spokesperson, Khaya, that there is a plan to deport Omotoso back to Nigeria. We're still waiting for confirmation from Home Affairs on that. But he didn't want to confirm or speak about suing the state. Speaking to the church members, Clement, in the JDI church, there is a lot of protocol. When we were covering the case, what came out really clearly is the godlike figure that Omotoso is in that church. So when I tried to get a comment even yesterday after the judgment was read from who is a man of God or a pastor in the church who was literally in court throughout the 9 years, he said that, and I quote him as saying that Papa, which is Omotoso, has spoken to you guys in court, and whatever he says is the law, and we don't speak after that. So even getting a comment from the church as to what the way forward is becoming quite tough, because they are of the view that until Omotoso, who is the godlike father figure in the church, allows them to, the church won't speak as well. So the only thing we have now is the confirmation from Khaya from the NPA, confirming that Omotoso will be deported. The time frames they are, we're not too sure, waiting for Home Affairs to confirm that. But in terms of suing the state, we have no word yet from JDI or Omotoso if that's going to happen.
Yeah. Sipho said, you guys sat through the testimony of these witnesses, particularly Cheryl. And I mean, some of the things that she shared were devastating, of what they were subjected to. Just help our listeners remember how critical those testimonies were, especially Cheryl's testimony. And where does this leave her? I know she was there in court yesterday. What did she say? She must be devastated herself.
Clement, you will remember that Cheryl Zondi was one witness who the entire country and the world heard give testimony. And she took to the witness stand and she detailed graphically what had happened to her. And this made the story very interesting but sad at the same time, because remember, Omotoso, like Lerato saying, that was deemed as a leader, a church leader. He is a respected man who his congregants came out in their numbers to support him inside court. And some were outside of court declaring their love and support for him, calling him Papa and the man of God. And now here comes Cheryl Zondi sitting at the witness stand detailing what she allegedly experienced in the hands of Omotoso. So the case at this point, or at the time, was so intense and tense to an extent that she herself had said in an interview with my media colleagues, Olerato, talking about how they went through so much judgment, and people were having an opinion about what had happened. They had their own story about her story and they were sharing it on social media. So moving forward for her looks sad, as well as other witnesses, and it sends a message, like the same message she sent, that their duty or their motive to come forward to share their story was to ensure that they put a stop to what they alleged Omotoso had done to them. So what does life look like for some of those members of the JDI congregates who came out in their full support, women, female, as well as young girls, Clement? So this is a story that looks sad for other witnesses as well in our country, who sit and wonder if whether or not they should come forward and share their stories as well. So life for Cheryl is going to change like it changed back in 2017, but for the worst, one would assume.
Yeah. Lerato, and during that testimony as well, how did the prosecuting team handle that one? Did they maximize on that time that Cheryl Zondi was on the stand to try really convince the judge that this man is guilty?
Absolutely. I think that when it got to Cheryl Zondi, her cross-examination by the defense was, one of them was painful, because obviously defense was trying to watered down her testimony and perhaps changed her charge of rape to just an insertion of a finger. Because the first time with Cheryl, where she became graphic and they wanted the graphic details because they wanted to prove, was there a finger insertion, was there penetration, did his private parts reach certain private parts internally with you as well. So in terms of the state, they were obviously trying to drive a narrative here that there were penetrations. And the defense throughout Cheryl's case tried to show that, even tried to define what penetration is. Asked her, did you feel his private part next to your thigh? And that was a painful part of her specific examination, because the state was trying to show that his private part did go inside her. And they even asked her, and you must remember now, this is someone who has to remember what happened to her 9 years ago, which must be just traumatizing in itself, and trying to remember those graphic details. But the state did do the utmost, I feel, with Cheryl's only to try show the case that the state or the law in this instance, that it wasn't just an insertion of a finger like he did with the other victims, but with Cheryl, his penis, to use that word, was what was inserted into her, and that's how it became penetration, not just an insertion of the finger. So I think the state did well with Cheryl's only by showing the court that this wasn't just a man who, like the other girls, touched their boobs or made them massage his feet. With Cheryl specifically, they had sex. He raped her. Even after they had sex, Cheryl spoke about how Omotoso lay on her, and after that prayed, and he ejaculated, and then he prayed and asked her to go wash herself, and then he said that God must forgive them for their sins, as if Cheryl was a willing participant in this, and she was never that at all, as she alleges, and she was 13 and a minor, and perhaps would never ever allude or never want to part of that. So the state did very well in trying to push the narrative that this man didn't, like the other girls, just touch private parts, but with Cheryl, there was specific penetration of the penis that even went as far as she alleges touched the clit of her vagina.
It's now 11:30. Time for the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. Thank you to Lerato Fekisi, who's there with SABC News, Sipo Boy, who's with True FM. They've been covering this case from the onset, helping us understand how the NPA got it wrong. How did they fail to prove their charges against Omotoso and his co-accused beyond reasonable doubt? How did they even fail to pass the bare minimum test of prima facie? I'm going to take your WhatsApps and calls after the headlines. Mikey, good morning.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. Action SA says the ANC can't expect to count on its continued support for the national budget if it doesn't retract the proposed VAT increase of 0.5 percentage points next month. Reflecting on its position a day after it supported the fiscal framework in the National Assembly yesterday, Parliamentary Leader Athol Trollip says with the division of revenue and appropriation bills still to be discussed, there's a long way to go before the budget is a done deal. Joburg Mayor Dada Morero has reiterated calls to put infrastructure investment at centre stage as the public and private sectors join heads to help spur the country's economic recovery. Morero made the comments at the inaugural Gauteng Investment Conference this morning. He's joined by Trade and Industry Ministers Park Stau, Gauteng MEC for Economic Development Lebogang Maile, and business leaders in a bid to catalyse foreign and regional direct investment into Africa's economic powerhouse. And Hungary's government has announced that it will withdraw from the International Criminal Court. This is just before Prime Minister Viktor Orban was to receive his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu, who is the subject of an ICC arrest warrant. Those are the headlines. This Eyewitness News and more at midday or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Good morning. We start with some traffic lights out. No major reported incidents throughout Gauteng. No pointsmen or pointswomen as well. They will return at 3 p.m. Just in time for you to get to your destination around the peak hours. Old Pretoria Road, Midrand at Olifantsfontein Road, CR Swart at Malibongwe, North Riding, Alexander Township at Far East Bank Drive and Marlborough Drive, Cedar and Uranium in Four Ways, North Riding at the N1 in both directions and Malibongwe Drive. We also have traffic lights out in the city of Tshwane, causing delays. Queenswood, Gordons Road and Woodlands Drive, Stead and Salt Bansberg, as well as Fountain Circle and Nelson Mandela Drive. That's in Groenkloof. Similar issues in Brakfontein at Nelmapius and Midstream. I'll have your next traffic update in the next 30 minutes or as it happens.
There's more EWN on air, online and on the EWN app.
John Perlman. Weekday afternoons,
3 to 6.
The fact that it's a complicated case would suggest a couple of things to me. This intervention should have happened a good deal earlier, but I want to clarify this from you. Are you sending senior people in to investigate the investigation? Surely the key priority is to go in and solve the case.
Absolutely. It's to solve the case, and we can only do so if we also trace our steps. But most importantly, to engage the NPA to say there are no prospects to prosecute.
Brigadier Atlenda Manyathela.
John Perlman.
3 to 6 on 702.
Elevate your flying experience with Lift Premium. Enjoy even more space, comfort, and convenience with priority boarding, extra baggage allowance, and complimentary lounge access. Visit lift.co.za today.
Hollywood Bets invites you to a drop of endless rewards and riches with Spinner Zonke prize drops. Gear up for exhilarating entertainment and a chance to win a share of a whopping 2.5 million rand in cash and prizes when you bet 2 rand or more on selected pragmatic play games every Monday, Tuesday and Thursday. Fortune favors the bold. So log in and play between 12:30 and 10:30 p.m. and you could spin into phenomenal prizes. Bet now. T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. Hollywood Bet supports responsible gambling. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counselling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp HELP to 076 675 0710.
Dear Journal, trying to be an adult, day 3215. Checked my bank statements. Payday me and rest of the month me have drastically different budgets. Urgently need to discuss this with Payday me, but I can't seem to get hold of her. She's always out on the jawl.
Recently removed from the family payroll? Get covered at pineapple.co.za. It's like 570 Rand a month, so it's 100% the insurance for you. Underwritten by Old Mutual Alternative Risk Transfer Insurer Limited, a licensed non-life insurer and authorized FSP. Premiums are risk profile dependent.
You're with Clement Manyathela.
702.
24 minutes before 12 o'clock, we'll continue with the conversation on our Thursday dialogue this morning around what really transpired in the Gqeberha High Court. This is where this Omotoso trial has been unfolding. He has now been acquitted together with his co-accused. And the judge in this matter, Emma Skuman, heavily criticized the prosecution team and the NPA's management of the case. I mean, she was basically saying the ANC actually just failed to prove that the charges were true. They failed to prove the charges beyond reasonable doubt, which is really the basic expectation in any court of law. So I'm taking your thoughts on 011-883-0702 on that. Your WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702. Maybe you want to reflect on the trial. Maybe you want to reflect on the consequences of a ruling like this. But first, let's find out what's coming up on 702 afternoons with Relebohile Mabocha. How are you doing, Relebohile?
I'm good, thanks. And you, Clement?
I'm all right. What's popping today on the show?
Coming up on the show, our Belief Matters feature. We're going to talk about Ash Wednesday, which is in the Christian calendar. So we'll have that conversation with Dean and Head of School of Religion, Philosophy and Classics at the University of KwaZulu-Natal in Pietermaritzburg. We are going to have Wendy Nola coming through in our consumer rights feature, and she's going to be chatting to us about a case where somebody bought a vehicle and only discovered after having the car that it had been in a car accident. So what are some of the things you can do when you're in that situation? We'll also open up the lines for everybody's consumer rights issues. But what we kick off today is there is in Sweden, they have decided to remove screens and ban them from classrooms altogether, saying that they're going to go back to books, paper, and pens. The government believes that there's too much tech in schools that is hurting children's learning and focus. So I'd like to find out from everybody what their thoughts are. If you do think that going back to the basics is the way to go, especially if you look at the fact that some people struggle with writing and holding pens properly. I want to find out if, as South Africans, we think that could be useful for us or not.
Okay, that's what's coming up on 702 afternoons with Relebohile Mabocha.
The Dialogue with Clement Manyathela.
It's not just another roundtable discussion.
Let's walk the talk on 702.
Right, let's go to your calls now and WhatsApps 011-883-0702. The WhatsApp line is 072-702-1702.
Hi, Clement. You see that the NPA was really destroyed in the days of state capture. And I don't think they've managed to rebuild it. We saw an exodus of senior NPA prosecutors, people who had proper experience. And we're expecting that Shamila Patoy, when she comes, is going to rebuild the NPA. I don't think she has managed to do that at all. And the other thing that becomes complex, the fact that an NPA that is weak actually favors politicians to some extent, because they face all these criminal charges and then they get away with it when they go there. So you actually wonder if there is a political will to strengthen the NPA, as we know that it will end up biting them if it has enough teeth to do that. So it's shocking, but Shamila Patoy, I think she needs to go.
Just saying these people just stuffed it up on purpose and had no interest in finding out the truth. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Ibrahim, Cape Town. Thank you.
Yeah, but did they mess it up on purpose? I'm not sure. What would be, why, for what? How would they benefit from that? And yeah, what you said there about the NPA and how it's really just the prosecutors, their behavior in some of these important matters is really disappointing. You'll remember the Nulani or Nulane investment case where that also ended in acquittal in the Free State High Court. The judge in that matter said it was a comedy of errors. And here's what was significant about that matter. That was the first ever state capture case. The NPA needed to get that right. And that was a case that hinged on the NPA getting the Gupta family back to South Africa to stand trial. Remember that Gupta extradition? It hinged on this case that the NPA bungled. The judge in that matter said it was a comedy of errors. That's why she described the NPA case. Why? Because the state couldn't prove their case. In fact, the suggestion from the judge was that the case was bungled. What does this mean for the NPA? What does this mean for these critical cases that are being prosecuted? It's really disheartening. What that judge said was quite shocking. Now in the Eastern Cape, but also in the Free State as well. I want to go to some of the WhatsApp texts that have come through, and then I'm going to bring in the next guest who's joining us. Sibonga Konke says, I believe that there's a lack of quality prosecutors in the NPA. In fact, in all government departments, there's quantity instead of quality. The rich can afford quality lawyers. That's a message there from Kulani. And that's the thing. There's, in fact, an impact on access to justice, on the administration of justice. It can be that if you've got a lot of money, you stand a better chance of staying out of jail, not because you may not be guilty, but because you just have money to hire the very best of lawyers who are going to trample down on the state's case against you. Like he says, Clement, what happened in the Omotoso case confirms that what I've always been telling everyone. Prosecutors and investigators decide in a very corrupt relationship whether a case goes to court or use the method of deliberately misleading the investigation and weaken the case so that when it gets to court, it is dismissed. This is a new way to compromise a case deliberately rather than making the docket disappear, which has been the case in the past. But now dockets can be reconstructed because they are kept in computers. It is not always that they fail to bring a strong case, but a deliberate act if a matter has attracted too much public interest. I still don't get that. I mean, it doesn't work for them. So if a matter has attracted a lot of public interest like this, in fact, there's more reason and more pressure for you to get it right. I really don't get it. Let's bring in Advocate Ntabiseng Sepanya now. Sepanya-Mogale, who's also, by the way, the chairperson of the Commission for Gender Equality. Advocate Sepanya-Mogale, thank you so much for making time for us. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement. Thanks for having us.
I just read now a second, if not third, comment from one of our listeners who feel like maybe this was always planned to mess this up on purpose. I'm not convinced because I don't see how, in turn, it benefits the NPA. But from your own observation here, are we talking about just pure incompetence, as the judge suggested in the Eastern Cape in the Gqeberha High Court? Are we dealing with the incompetence of these prosecutors from the NPA? Or, from your reading here, the case was just too complex for them?
Clement, I think it's a multifaceted reason why this got messed up. There's a level of incompetence because some of the things that were pointed out in the judgment actually point to sheer incompetence. Then secondly, there's the overloaded prosecutors who sometimes see for the first time the case when they draw it out to take it to court the next day. The last time they saw it was when they were postponing as a result of the workload. And then thirdly, you have a situation where there is poor preparation on the part of the prosecutors themselves. And I think to some extent, poor training. There is no reason why what happened has happened. South Africa is one of those countries that has got specialized courts. We've got sexual offences courts, we've got labor courts, we've got so many other, we've got equality courts, we've got specialized courts wherein people are supposed to be experts by now in those courts, both presiding officers and the people who prosecute or who bring matters, defend matters in those cases. Thank you.
I want to remind some of our listeners of just the testimony. This is Cheryl Zondi. She was one of the witnesses, and this is really one of the things that she said that shocked many people in the country and, in fact, around the globe, around when she alleged what happened between her and Pastor Omotoso. Take a listen.
No, I didn't say I want you to apologize to me. Hearing this man, this high and mighty man, telling me that he is sorry for what he did to me would have given me closure.
Would that have been sufficient for you?
I never got it, so I don't know.
Did you think it would be sufficient for you?
It would have given me some closure.
What do you mean by closure? Do you mean that you could have put everything behind you once he had apologized?
I don't think so.
Well, what do you mean by closure?
So I think I just explained what I mean by closure.
Ma'am, you haven't explained what you meant by closure. I just want to understand what you mean by closure. Do you mean that once he had apologized, you would have been able to put everything that happened to you behind you?
I don't know. I never got the closure that I wanted, so I don't know how things would have panned out if he apologized.
You never asked him to apologize, correct?
I told him that what he did to me, I did not like. And I asked him, why was it so necessary? Why is it so necessary for you to do this? And he told me, there's no other option. It's either I'm in or out. That's what his response was.
Please just answer the question. Did you at any stage request an apology from him?
No. I didn't say I want you to apologize to me.
Thank you.
So that's Cheryl Zondi there. I'll find you that clip where she basically explained what happened when, as she alleges, she was sexually assaulted. Yesterday she was there, in fact, in court. So right after Judge Skuman delivered her judgment, she spoke to the media afterwards.
Guys,
and all sorts of fabrications spread about us online when we're walking down the street. Our lives have never been the same after coming out about this. And one has to wonder, so this is what the last 8 years of our lives has come down to. The main concern wasn't even the knowing of what he did to us. It's knowing that he's not going to stop. He's going to continue doing this to other women and other girls. And that's what we wanted to stop. That's what we wanted to prevent. To say it ends with us and it's not going to go any further. But he's not going to stop. It's in his nature. And I feel that this is kind of enabling to him. I think things may only get worse from here. Definitely going to be more pompous and believe that this is an act of God. And it's not. I think we're all familiar with the fact that evil prevails in this world. And it's really unfortunate.
Yeah, that's what Cheryl Zondi said, who was one of the witnesses in this case. Advocate, what happens now? The NPA released a statement saying they're going to be considering their options. It's going to be embarrassment after embarrassment if they try even appeal this judgment, if they themselves can see that there was just shoddy work that was done.
Yeah, they say they are reading the judgment and will decide on a way forward after they have seen what entails it. But the NPA actually, there were a lot of opportunities throughout the process wherein they could have monitored this much more closely so that we don't end up with this situation. The team that was being accused, the three people that were being accused had put up a fight from day one. You remember there was a presiding officer who had to recuse herself because they went and investigated and found that some people were sleeping at the B&B that is owned by the wife. And there were so many other instances where they actually showed that they are not going to go down without a fight. And that for me were like, these are supposed to be red flags wherein the NPA was supposed to have said, let's get good experienced lawyers. But let us not forget that this prosecutor apparently has got 14 years of experience under his belt, but I'm not sure if it's sexual offenses prosecution experience or it's just generally having been a prosecutor for 14 years. So we cannot guarantee that. But there were quite a few instances where the NPA could have intervened.
Yeah. And what about do you suspect that Omotoso may want to sue the state? I mean, I suspect that's one thing that he's heavily considering right now. Because, I mean, 8 years and you come out and there's just the NPA failed to prove the charges that they brought against you, whether you had done it or not. You may just want to sue the state, and that's going to be a significant pay if he succeeds.
Yeah, but let's not forget, Clement, I actually am glad you raised that. Omotoso was not found not guilty. Omotoso was acquitted on technicalities, which is different. It's one thing to actually say we cannot fulfill the benchmarks that we have to fulfill for you to be guilty. However, we are not saying, therefore, you are not guilty. So there's a difference there. The state failed. And you must remember, even the measure of beyond reasonable doubt is quite a high test to pass. It is it's not a balance of probabilities. It is quite a high test to pass, especially against the backdrop of the fact that the crimes had happened a few years before. The witnesses were young at the time. The tension that the church members of Omotoso had put against them, you know, some of it is what Ms. Zondi just pointed out in your clip now. So there was a lot of tension there. So it's not in any way a proof of innocence on his part or on the part of the two co-accused.
So what are the options available then when a matter has been acquitted like that? What are the options available for the NPA? Is it a matter of we appeal, or is it a matter of maybe going back to the drawing board and then charging this man again?
I think it has to be a multifaceted approach. They need to appeal this. They need to look at the training of their prosecutors. They need to look at the workload of their prosecutors so that prosecutors can actually prepare. They need to look at the specialized crimes that are coming in. The fact that we've got commercial crimes there, we're supposed to be having accountants, IT specialists, and so many other people in the team of the NPA, not only lawyers. They need to review their teams in the sexual offences courts, because sexual offences could be where it's a open and shut case where there is evidence. And then there are the old cases where there is not evidence anymore, but the emotional evidence that gets presented. That has got to be interpreted by a specialist.
I see now that the Minister of Justice has, in accordance with Section 33 of the National Prosecuting Act, formally requested a comprehensive report from the National Director of Public Prosecutions to understand the factors that contributed to this outcome. So she herself, as someone who is in the department that oversees the NPA, clearly is not happy with how things unfolded here. I've got Billy Peterson says, Clement, good morning to you and your guest. I really do worry about this matter, and I hope the NPA can take it up. And we've just spoken about those options available for the NPA. And I often wonder, Advocate, what about the witnesses? You saw how brutal it was for them. Some of the questions that they were asked. You are basically, as a victim of assault, asked to relive that. I mean, there were a lot of things that they alleged on that witness stand, and to go through it, and then at the end, the matter is acquitted. I mean, that must be devastating for them.
Yeah, no, it would be, but fortunately, an appeal does not have to be a de novo matter. You don't have to start from scratch where witnesses come forward. That is a different process altogether. But Clement, it also still does have a bearing, because you must remember when this case started, there were 63 charges. And as a result of witnesses being reluctant to come forward after they saw what happened in the start and goes of this matter, a lot of them actually withdrew. That is how Omotoso and his co-accused ended up with only 32. But 32 is still a formidable number. And yet all of the 32 were acquitted. They were acquitted of all of the 32. So yes, they will have to appeal. They can look at a review and even look at the options of the duty of the presiding officer, although that would be a very difficult route, because the presiding officer is not supposed to enter the fray willy-nilly. So when you mess up your case, you cannot rely on the presiding officer to say, hey, you're messing up. You should be knowing better. Yeah.
Sure. Advocate Ntabiseng Sepanya-Mogale, thank you so much for joining us as well for this conversation on our Thursday dialogue. It's 3 minutes before 12.
Aubrey Masango.
Weekday evenings,
8 to midnight.
It was concerning that the government of the United States will listen to organizations, whether it's the DA, whether it's the AfriForum and Solidarity, and not listen to the government of the Republic of South Africa. It signaled a deliberate desire to distort South Africa's message about the issues of land, and I'm glad that those have been at least canvassed for discussion. Hopefully this will begin a process of recalibration.
Aubrey Masango.
8 to midnight on 702.
702.
What is your money doing right now? Is it lazing around in that other account because you're not sure where to move it for premium growth? Well, let's make it work hard in a Standard Bank Money Market Select investment account, where we'll grow it with a nominal interest of up to 7.9% on a minimum deposit of 100,000 Rand. Plus, you get access to your funds anytime. Open yours online or on our app today. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Get tested this April at Specsavers, and we'll give you a free optical frame up to the value of 1,000 Rand. That's right, get a free frame up to the value of 1,000 Rand when you purchase a comprehensive eye examination at Specsavers. Book online at specsavers.co.za or visit your nearest store nationwide. Early detection is key. Get tested today. Specsavers, for affordable eye care and a whole lot more. T's and C's apply.
To walk the talk is to turn words into meaningful actions. And it's what we at 702 are committed to doing every day. We're also committed to following the rules set out by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission's Code of Conduct, to give you balanced programming, fair comment, and accurate news. But if we stumble along the way and you feel we're not living up to the code, let us know on comment@702.co.za. And if after that you're still not happy, you can direct your complaint in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission, PO Box 412365, Craig Hall 2024. For more, visit bccsa.co.za.
Coming up next, the midday report with Mendy Wiener. How are you doing, Mendy?
Hey, Clement.
What's popping today?
Things are moving very quickly. The DA has just had a press conference on the steps of the High Court in Cape Town, saying that they're going to apply for an interdict against a VAT hike, saying the ANC doesn't want to share power. The ANC has just put out a statement about the fiscal framework, also saying they're calling a special NEC on Monday. So we still have a lot of flux around the GNU and what's going to happen. Action SA had a press conference earlier today. We'll speak to Ethel Trollip, who the DA, of course, refers to as the Bull of Bedford, I think somewhat disparagingly. So we'll speak to him about comments he made earlier. The presidency saying it's concerned about the Trump tariffs. We'll hopefully speak to the president's spokesperson. The Gauteng Investment Conference is underway, and then we'll go to Batatiel as well, the latest on the Kwetwe case.
All right, that's what's coming up on the midday report. Thank you for listening to the Thursday edition of the Clement Manyathela Show. We'll be back again with you tomorrow between 9 and 12. Have a beautiful day, my friends. Bye-bye.
This is EWN.
Good afternoon, I'm Mikey Molapo. We begin with news just in. The DA has filed an urgent application before the Western Cape High Court to interdict the implementation of the VAT increase by 0.5 percentage points. The party wants the implementation of the hike, which is set to come into effect on May 1st, suspended pending the outcome of the review application. The fiscal framework was passed yesterday after receiving 194 votes in favour. The party seeks to challenge the constitutionality and validity of the resolutions passed by the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces regarding the 2025 fiscal framework. It also wants Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana's announcement of a phased increase in the VAT be declared unconstitutional. We'll have more details in our next bulletins. Action SA says the ANC can't expect to count on its continued support for the national budget if it doesn't retract the proposed VAT increase of 0.5 percentage points next month. Reflecting on its position a day after it supported the fiscal framework in the National Assembly yesterday, Parliamentary Leader Ethel Trollip says with the division of revenue and appropriation bills still to be discussed, there's a long way to go before the budget is a done deal. The party insists no VAT remains a red line for it.
And if we don't find a solution in 27 days' time, do not look to us to support you to pass the rest of this budget. The passage of this budget is still a long, long way away. And the people that they have convinced to get them out of the hole that they've dug for themselves are not going to continue doing that if they show no good faith. So we're going to hold the ANC to account.
Trollip says his party got the cold shoulder from the DA when it tried to engage it on finding alternatives to the contents in the budget it doesn't agree with. It says the position the GNU's second largest